You were originally a patriarch of the Gu family, a golden core mid-stage sword cultivator, guarding the spirit peak for the sect for 100 years. Yet you were treated as a target for the new sect leader to establish authority. Even your own descendants knelt outside your cave dwelling, begging you to go to your death. And the sect elders were already discussing in the clouds, waiting for your death, on how to divide your legacy. And at this moment, I am standing at the entrance of the cave, looking at this group of animals who were crying heart-wrenchingly, but didn't even shed a single tear. You decided to kill a few of them first. They claimed it was for the greater good of the sect, and also for the future of the younger generation of the Gu family. TSK, they talk so nicely. Isn't it just because they see your lifespan is running out, and they want to squeeze you one last time before you die? Below the spirit path peak, a few outer sect disciples were whispering in low voices. In an immortal cultivation sect, there are no secrets that can be kept, especially when this matter is not a small one. The Xianyang sect and the Qishao sect were fighting over a cold marrow vein, each sending one person for a death match. The winner takes the vein, the loser gives way. After calculating everything, finally, their eyes fell on you. Patriarch of the Gu family, a golden core cultivator. Lifespan is running out. Life fire is fading. Take him to the death match. If he wins, it's a huge profit. If he loses, there's no loss. Anyway, he is going to die soon, right? At least that's what many people in the sect think. On the mountain path, Gu Jingshan, the current head of the Gu family, was bringing a group of people to Spirit Path Peak. He naturally heard those discussions. His face just darkened for a moment before returning to calm. It sounded harsh, but what is that compared to the benefits the Gu family can get? As long as the patriarch signs the death match contract, 3 spiritual fields, 2 inner sect quotas, 30% inheritance rights of the Spirit Path Peak resources. Just leaking a little bit is enough for the Gu family to eat for many years. More importantly, the Gu family can truly rely on the new sect leader's faction. He felt he was not wrong. The patriarch is old, but the Gu family cannot decline with him. It is very normal for someone who is about to die to use their last remaining heat to help the family take a step forward. Based on the patriarch's personality, he would most likely agree. Even if he is uncomfortable in his heart, he won't really fall out. After all, he has endured for so many years. How tough can a person who has endured his whole life be before he dies? You opened your eyes wide. Your first reaction was pain. Strange memories flooded in all at once, so painful that your knuckles were shaking. Then you were silent. It wasn't that you were pretending to be deep, but you were so angry that you didn't know which one to curse first for a while. Just opened your eyes and hadn't figured out if this old body could hold up. Outside, there were already people queuing up to send you on your way. Is this transmigration or rushing to be reincarnated? In your previous life, you were also a ruthless person. You spent half your life figuring out how to live, thinking you were blessed, but it turned out to be all fake. The son you raised wasn't your own flesh and blood. The wife who slept in the same bed had long been rolling with someone else. You endured the illness to investigate things clearly, laid the path out, and then found an opportunity to send the adulterer, the wife, and that cheap son all away. Not a single one left. After doing all this, you couldn't hold on yourself. Eyes closed and then reopened to find yourself in this ghostly place. Good guy. The original body also has a pile of messy accounts. In his youth, he had killed people and fought for his life. But once he got old, he changed. He cherished his reputation, the old feelings of the sect, the bloodline of the family, and finally, he cherished himself into a piece of meat. Everyone wanted to come up and take a bite. What do you hate the most? Hypocritical people. People who lie to you. People who put a knife to your throat in the name of being good for you. Now this group of people doesn't even count as lying. They want your life, and they want you to sign with a smile, and they want you to be moved, and praise the Gu family for having successors, and the Xianyang sect for having great justice before you die. You were almost laughed at by the anger. Screw them. What the hell is this? Unfilial descendant of the Gu family, Gu Jingshan, respectfully requests the patriarch to leave seclusion. The sound of kneeling came from outside the cave. The Qishao sect has bullied our Xianyang sect too much. The cold marrow vein concerns the century-old foundation of the sect. Please, patriarch, for the sake of the family, for the sake of the sect's great righteousness, sign the death match contract. All the Gu family, once again, request the patriarch to go to his death. Go to his death? Good, 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 good. Before I die, I will send you all to heaven first. You raised your hand. Boom. A crimson sword light rose into the sky from the peak, tearing through the clouds. The sword body was entirely crimson, as if it had been quenched from a sea of blood, carrying a murderous intent that made one's scalp tingle. The natal spiritual sword, Jin Yang, fell directly towards the Gu family members kneeling outside the cave. Before the sword aura even arrived, the younger generation of the Gu family had already been pressed to the ground. Some were so scared that their pants got wet. Gu Jingshan's soul almost flew away. Patriarch, I am Gu Jingshan. We are the descendants of the Gu family. The sword light did not slow down by even half a point. Descendants? Opening your mouth to ask the patriarch to go to his death. Closing your mouth with family righteousness. Did you really think he was a tablet placed in the ancestral hall? Kill a batch first. In the clouds in the distance, the faces of several elders changed at the same time. Someone shouted to stop but didn't make a move immediately. A golden core mid-stage sword cultivator, even if his lifespan is running out, is not easy to touch. Whoever makes the first move will eat the first bit of sword aura. But the new sect leader, Yunqingli, could not be slow. A white jade magic seal flew out from her sleeve to block above the Gu family members. Gu Chongjin, you dare. Boom. The sword light struck the magic seal. Yun Qingli's face turned slightly pale and she took half a step back. A look of disbelief flashed in her eyes. Wasn't Gu Chongjin's life fire fading? How does he still have such heavy sword aura? The cave door slowly opened. You walked out from the shadows, wearing an old black robe with white hair disheveled, eyes blood red. Yun Qingli's voice turned cold. Gu Chongjin, are you trying to betray the sect? Betray the sect? This hat is buckled very skillfully. You really want to explode right now. Anyway, this body doesn't have much lifespan left. Dying again seems to be just that. But having said that, if you can live, who wants to die? Being afraid of death is not shameful. Being forced to death is shameful. Just as you were calculating whether to slash Yun Qingli with a sword before you die and kill a few ungrateful wolves to cushion your back. Deep in your sea of consciousness, a vibration suddenly occurred. An ancient Tao fruit slowly manifested, formless yet containing countless versions of yourself. Old man, youth, mortal, demonic cultivator, swordsman, immortal. In an instant, you seem to understand something. The Tao fruit is unique. The Tao traces are thousands. As long as the Tao traces return to their place, there is a path to walk. Lifespan, Tao foundation. The predicament is not a dead end. Your eyes changed instantly. Just a moment ago you were thinking about exploding. Now it's different. There is a way to live. If there is a way to live, who would choose mutual destruction? The murderous intent on your face slowly faded. The crimson spiritual sword retreated by half a foot. Looking down at the trembling Gu Jingshan, you suddenly smiled. Sect leader, don't be anxious. I just had a surge of blood just now, just scaring these unfilial descendants. The matter of the death match is not impossible to discuss. Gu Jingshan was stunned. Yun Qingli was also stunned. Only you were sneering in your heart. Discuss? Of course, discuss. If I don't talk you all into the pit, then I'll take your name. Wait until I figure out the secrets in the Tao fruit. Watch me clean up this group of ungrateful wolves one by one. The matter of the death match, it is not impossible to discuss. When Gu Chongjin said this, the atmosphere on Spirit Path Peak eased significantly. Just a moment ago it was tense. The crimson spiritual sword was suspended in midair. The tip of the sword still carried murderous intent. The Gu family members were lying on the ground, not even daring to breathe loudly. Now that he suddenly said it could be discussed, this made many people have a thought in their hearts. Fortunately, the old thing, he is still Gu Chongjin after all. Although he is angry, he really cares about the big picture. Yun Qingli also slowly suppressed her dissatisfaction. She looked at Gu Chongjin. Her tone became clear and upright again. If Elder Gu can prioritize the overall situation of the sect, naturally, this sect will not treat the Gu family badly. Once these words came out, Gu Jingshan, who was lying on the ground, pricked up his ears. Those elders and younger generations of the Gu family also couldn't help but look up one by one. It's coming. It's finally coming. Before he almost killed the entire Gu family with one sword. That was an accident. But as long as the benefits can arrive, this bit of fright is not impossible to endure. Yun Qingli raised her hand. Her sleeve moved slightly. If Elder Gu is willing to sign the deathmatch contract, this sect can grant the Gu family a direct disciple quota. Gu Jingshan's breath stalled. Direct disciple? This is not an inner disciple. A direct disciple of the Xianyang sect not only is taught by the elders personally, but can also enter the core inheritance place of the sect. As long as the Gu family produces a direct disciple, their status in the Xianyang sect will be different immediately. Before he could be happy, Yun Qingli added, additionally, bestow the Gu family 3 inner sect quotas, 3 spiritual fields, 1 inner courtyard next to the spiritual vein. The eyes of several young juniors of the Gu family turned red. 3 inner sect quotas. This is equivalent to laying a path directly for them. On weekdays, if they want to enter the inner sect, they have to fight with a pile of people until they bleed. Now, as long as the patriarch nods, they can save decades of struggle. This deal is too worth it. Of course, it is worth it for them, not worth it for the patriarch. Yun Qingli's last sentence was the true core. In addition, for the next 30 years, every time the sect distributes foundation establishment pills, the Gu family can occupy a candidate quota. Boom. Gu Jingshan's brain went numb for a moment. Foundation establishment pill. This is the real thing. With this quota, the Gu family won't be betting their lives in the future. As long as the younger generation of the family works hard, there will be opportunities to produce foundation establishment cultivators generation after generation. With continuous foundation establishment, the family will not decline. Is this compensation? This is the 100-year foundation of the Gu family. Gu Jingshan suppressed his ecstasy. Even his fingers were shaking slightly. Several elders of the Gu family had already started exchanging glances. Who gets the direct disciple quota? How to divide the inner sect quotas? Who gets to be in the candidate quota for the foundation establishment pill first? Even which branch gets the 3 spiritual fields? They had already started calculating in their hearts. But Gu Chongjin stood in front of the cave. Hearing this, his eyelids twitched. No, wait, isn't this compensation for me? Why are you talking about the Gu family? I am the one going for the death match, and the Gu family gets rich? I am putting my life on the line, right? You are dividing quotas down there. The beads of the abacus are falling on my face. Gu Chongjin's face remained calm, but he had already started cursing in his heart. He finally understood. These people never thought about him at all from the beginning to the end. In Yun Qingli Qingli's eyes. He is a brick for the big picture of the sect. In the eyes of the Gu family, he is an old face used to exchange for resources. It doesn't matter where you move him. It doesn't matter where he dies. As long as he dies worth a lot of money. Fine. Is that how you want to play? Gu Chongjin suddenly raised his hand to cover his chest. The next moment, his body swayed. Puff. A mouthful of blood was sprayed out directly. The blood splashed on the bluestone, so red it was eye-piercing. The Gu family members who were full of ecstasy just now, their expressions froze instantly. Yun Qingli was also stunned for a moment, and those elders hiding in the clouds also twitched their eyelids. What is the situation? Didn't he just almost kill the whole Gu family with one sword? Why is he vomiting blood suddenly? Gu Chongjin leaned against the cave wall, his face pale, his aura withered all of a sudden. His voice was hoarse, carrying an unspeakable desolation. The sect leader taking care of the Gu family. Naturally, I am grateful, but the sect leader can see it too. My lifespan is running out, and I have old injuries. Just now, using the sword forcibly, I have already damaged my root, he said here, and coughed twice, coughing in a way that sounded so real. Blood was flowing down the corners of his mouth. Gu Chongjin felt very steady in his heart. Act. Continue to act. If you don't act, how can you add money? Yun Qingli frowned slightly. She did indeed receive that sword move just now. Although Gu Chongjin's sword aura was heavy, the sense of decline in his aura was also true. It seems that his condition is even worse than she thought. Gu Chongjin looked up at Yun Qingli, his eyes complex. If I just go to the death match like this, I am afraid that before I see the people of the Qishao sect, I will fall on the road first. At that time, if I die, it doesn't matter. But what about the sect's big picture? What about the cold marrow vein? The sect leader's dignity? And what about that? These few sentences came out. Yun Qingli's expression was indeed more serious. The thing she cares about most is the sect's big picture and the sect leader's dignity. Gu Chongjin handed the words to hear, just happened to hit her point. He struck while the iron was hot, sighed. So the compensation for the Gu family can be slowed down for a while. When Gu Jingshan heard this, his face changed on the spot. What do you mean slow down? Patriarch, please wake up. That is the property of the Gu family. But he didn't dare to speak. The crimson spiritual sword was still in the sky. Gu Chongjin didn't even look at him, and continued to say to Yun Qingli, the urgent priority is for me to survive this death match first. Life-extending pills, supplementing pills, soul-nourishing pills, pulse-protecting spiritual liquid, everything that can be used, must be used. I don't ask to come back alive. I only ask to be able to swing a few more swords before I die, without failing the sect. How well spoken. Without failing the sect. Gu Chongjin almost believed it himself. Yun Qingli pondered slightly. The surrounding elders secretly thought it was bad. This old thing, he wants resources, and once he opens his mouth, he moves the compensation of the Gu family to himself. It is hard to refute these words. People go to the death match. People need pills to heal their wounds. Is there a problem? No problem. You can't call people to go to their death on one hand, and not even give pills on the other. That would be really ugly. Yun Qingli was young after all. Or perhaps, she was used to standing in high positions and issuing orders, and had never really managed these trivial things. She only felt that what Gu Chongjin said was reasonable, so she nodded. Can. Gu Jingshan's heart sank violently. Yun Qingli continued, the rewards for the Gu family can be calculated as pills and spiritual items first, to provide for Elder Gu to prepare for the death match. Gu Chongjin's eyes lit up, but quickly suppressed it. Don't be anxious. Not done yet. Yun Qingli thought for a moment, and added another sentence. In addition, this sect allows you to enter the sect's treasure vault, to take 3 items at will. As soon as this sentence came out, the faces of the elders in the clouds changed. Sect treasure vault. Take 3 items at will. This is not an ordinary reward. There are some things in the vault even these elders covet. Gu Chongjin almost couldn't hold it. Oh my god. This silly sweet girl really doesn't know that it's expensive to run a house. If more sect leaders like this come, the Xianyang sect will be moved empty sooner or later. However, his face still maintained a weak appearance. Only nodded gently. Sect leader has great righteousness. I am endlessly grateful. After saying this, he coughed twice again. This time no blood. Can't vomit too much. Easy to expose the lie if vomiting too much. Yun Qingli saw that the matter was finally pressed down, raised her hand and took out a black gold contract. The contract hung in midair, exuding a faint blood light. Death match contract. Once signed, it will be witnessed by the sect's legal contract. 3 days later, Gu Chongjin must represent the Xianyang sect, to have a death match with the Qishao sect's golden core cultivator. Gu Chongjin took a look, sneering in his heart. 3 days. Enough. As long as the Dao traces return to their place and there is a glimmer of hope, who dies is not yet certain. He raised his hand and squeezed out a drop of essence blood, falling onto the contract. The black gold contract vibrated slightly, turning into a beam of blood light and disappearing into the void. The matter seemed to be settled, but the Gu family members couldn't be happy. The previous direct disciple quotas, inner sect quotas, foundation establishment pill candidates, although it wasn't said to be cancelled, but they have to be calculated for the patriarch to prepare for the battle first. This first. Who knows when it will be first? What if the patriarch uses it all before the death match? What if the patriarch dies after the death match, and the sect turns its back on its word? Gu Jingshan felt bitter in his heart, but before he could swallow this bitter breath, Gu Chong Changjin suddenly looked down at him. Jingshan. Gu Jingshan quickly knelt straight. Patriarch. Gu Changjin's tone was calm. Send an order back to the Gu family. Everything in the family vault, spiritual stones, pills, talismans, magic tools, send them all to Spirit Path Peak. Gu Jingshan was stunned. Gu Changjin's eyes turned cold. In midair, the crimson spiritual sword turned slightly. The tip of the sword aimed directly at Gu Jingshan's forehead. Gu Jingshan woke up instantly. Gu Changjin said slowly, "Why? This patriarch taking some of his own family supplies. Is there a problem?" Gu Jingshan's lips were pale. Problem. The problem is huge. The family vault is the foundation of the entire Gu family. If you take it all out, how can the Gu family operate? But did he dare to say this? He didn't dare, because he suddenly realized, the patriarch would really kill people today. Gu Jingshan squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. No problem. The patriarch is preparing for the death match. The Gu family naturally supports with all their strength. Gu Changjin nodded with satisfaction. That's more like it. He turned to look at the few Spirit Path Peak disciples next to the cave. These disciples were originally bowing their heads playing dead, now being looked at by the patriarch. They were startled. Gu Changjin said, "You guys go with the family head to ransack the house." Everyone was speechless. Gu Changjin coughed, and changed his words. "No, it's to collect supplies for me to prepare for the battle." Several disciples quickly lowered their heads. Disciple obeys orders. Gu Jingshan's face turned green, but he could only kowtow, respectfully obey the patriarch's decree. Gu Changjin then withdrew his gaze. After the matter was finished, he didn't fly back to the cave, but turned around, and walked step by step towards the peak. The figure was old. The black robe was blown by the mountain wind. It truly had a sense of desolation for the sake of the sect's great righteousness. Many elders in the distance looked at the scene, and their hearts were complicated. Gu Changjin is old, but in the end, he still cared about the big picture. Only Gu Changjin himself knew clearly in his heart. Walk slowly. Must walk slowly. If you don't maximize this tragic effect, how can you be worthy of the mouthful of blood you just vomited? As for the death match, whoever wants to go to their death, let them go. Anyway, he only wants to do one thing now. Take everything you can get. First, the secret room's stone door closed. The wind outside, the human voices, those messy eyes, all were blocked outside. Gu Changjin sat cross-legged on the cushion. The desolation on his face slowly collected. Things shown to others. You can't believe them yourself. That staggering silhouette from just a moment ago. What sect's great righteousness? What little lifespan left? What? I have tried my best. All were acted out. If you really want to make him move to tears for the sect, then it's better to put a sword to his neck right now. He closed his eyes, not rushing to manage the things outside. Whether it is the family vault of the Gu family, or the pills promised by the sect, someone has already gone to get them. They can't run. What is most important right now is the Tao fruit in the sea of consciousness. Gu Changjin's divine sense sank into the sea of consciousness. In a piece of darkness, the Tao fruit hung there, saying it's a fruit, but it has no fixed shape. At a glance, it looks like a chaotic colored seed. Look again. It looks like a star with no end in sight. Above the Tao fruit, countless blurred figures floated. There was a white-haired old man holding a sword on the top of the mountain. There was a youth wearing tattered cloth clothes, crawling forward in the rain dragging half a corpse. There was an emperor sitting on a blood-colored dragon chair, with corpses forming a mountain under his feet. There was a demonic cultivator standing in the center of the altar, with 10,000 souls wailing behind him, and some figures were even more blurred. Not like people, not even like living things. Gu Changjin just took one look, and felt his eyes hurt. His soul felt like it had been scraped by something. He immediately retracted his line of sight. Can't look around. This thing is even more evil than he imagined. No, it can't be called evil either. This is his thing, the only one in the heavens and worlds. Tao fruit unity. There is only one Tao fruit, but the Tao traces are scattered in the heavens and worlds. Those figures are all me, not clones, nor are they copy characters created by the system, but in countless worlds, the different traces belonging to the existence of Gu Changjin. Some became immortals, some became demons, some might not even know what cultivation is, and died in the mud. What he needs to do is to follow the Tao fruit's induction, and enter the cause and effect of those me, to resolve their final obsessions. Once the obsession is resolved, the Tao traces return to their place. The cultivation, experience, foundation of that life, even the lifespan and part of the Tao fruit traces, will be returned to himself. Gu Changjin opened his eyes. The bottom of his eyes finally lit up. Good things. This is the real good thing. What sect treasure vault? What Gu family vault? Compared to this, all have to wait in line. He looked down and sensed his own situation. Then his face looked not so good again. Vomiting blood just now was acting, but this body is about to be finished. That is true. The surface of the golden core is still full, but inside it is full of fine lines, like a pill burned dry. Touching it lightly will shatter it. Not to mention the lifespan. 3 months. At most 3 months. If he fights someone with all his strength again, whether he can last 3 days is questionable. No wonder the sect and the Gu family dared to make this plan. They didn't think he was weak, but thought he was about to die. A person about to die, no matter how strong, has a price. Gu Changjin sneered. It's a pity. They don't know. I have a way to extend my life now. As long as the first me is not the unlucky one who died as soon as he landed. Just recover one way. wave. Even if it only adds a few decades of lifespan, it is enough for him to drag through this dead end. If the luck is better, and he encounters an enemy with decent cultivation, then it will be even more comfortable. What Qishao sect death match? What sect leader's dignity? When the time comes, who will be used to establish authority is not necessarily certain. Gu Chongjin temporarily suppressed his thoughts, and took stock of the things left by the original body. The cultivation method is Jinyang Sword Classic, the superior sword cultivation method of the Xianyang sect. Fire attribute, heavy killing power, strong explosion. The shortcomings are also obvious. Injures the body, injures the meridians, and easy to burn oneself dry. The original body relied on this method to make a name for himself when he was young, and was dragged half dead by this method when he was old. The natal spiritual sword is named Jinyang, a crimson spiritual sword, raised in the Dantian for over 100 years, connected to the original body's life. It's no wonder that group of people wants to push him to a death match. A golden core mid-stage sword cultivator whose lifespan is running out. When he really risks his life, he is more difficult than an ordinary golden core late stage, taking him to a death match. It's indeed easy to use, so easy to use that Gu Chongjin wanted to laugh. He flipped through the storage ring. Not many spiritual stones, not many pills. Most of them had been taken out to take care of the family all these years. Those cubs of the Gu family, eat his, use his name to show off in the sect. But in the end, they knelt at the door, requesting the patriarch to go to his death. It really is filial piety. Gu Chongjin felt more and more that he was too gentle just now, only asking people to move the family vault. That was still being too lenient to them. No, wait until this wave of crisis passes. I really have to go to the scripture library to look for, if there is any demonic path secret method that can sacrifice the whole family, to replenish aptitude, extend lifespan, and recast the Tao foundation. The Gu family has eaten him for so many years, they have to pay it back. Taking resources now, is just the interest. The principal will be calculated later. At this time, the sound of a disciple came from outside the secret room. Master, we disciples request an audience. Gu Chongjin opened his eyes. Enter. The stone door opened. 3 foundation establishment disciples brought a dozen chi refining disciples inside. The leader was the eldest disciple, Su Heng, foundation establishment late stage, with a steady temperament, one of the few people on spirit path peak who could still get things done. The 2 foundation establishment disciples behind were, one called Zhou Qi, one called Chen Miaozhen, and further behind, were the chi refining disciples carrying boxes, box after box of wood-landed, spiritual stones, pills, talismans, spiritual herbs, magic tools, all piled up in the outer room of the secret room. The compensation promised by the sect also sent the first batch, a bottle of life-extending pills, 3 bottles of supplementing pills, 2 boxes of soul-nourishing incense, 5 portions of pulse-protecting spiritual liquid, and a treasure vault retrieval token. Gu Chongjin scanned them, feeling much more comfortable in his heart. That's more like it. Asking people to risk their lives. At least put the price out first. Su Heng lowered his head. Master, the Gu family vault has been opened. There are several hidden vaults. The family head said the keys could not be found for a moment. The disciple has already sent people to guard them. Gu Chongjin smiled. Keys can't be found. Su Heng didn't answer. Gu Chongjin said lightly, tell Gu Jingshan, send them within 1 hour. If they can't be sent, then let Jinyang go find them himself. Su Heng's heart was cold. Disciple understands. Gu Chongjin took a few bottles of pills from the box, and threw them to them casually. Working hard. Take them. Several disciples were stunned, especially Su Heng. A trace of astonishment flashed in his eyes. In the past, the master wouldn't give rewards, but rarely so directly, not to mention at a time like this, when he himself was even more short of resources. Su Heng quickly knelt down. Thank you, master. The other disciples also kowtowed. Thank you, elder, for the reward. Gu Chongjin waved his hand. Go down. Guard spirit path peak well. Without my orders, do not see anyone. Yes. The disciples withdrew from the secret room. After the stone door closed, Gu Chongjin heard someone outside whispering, do you guys feel like, the elder seems to be different from before? Another one hummed coldly, is it not good to be different? Before, those people from the Gu family came to ask for things every few days. When did the elder ever truly refuse? And the result? They knelt at the door and requested him to go to his death. That's true. That group of people is too inhumane. Sigh. If only the elder didn't have a lifespan crisis. The voices gradually went away. Gu Chongjin leaned on the cushion, and couldn't help laughing. No lifespan crisis. If I really let this patriarch live longer, you might not be happy either. Humans. He knows them too well. Now they pity him, because he is about to die. Once he really doesn't die, some people won't be able to sleep. Gu Chongjin put away his smile, and put together the pills and spiritual items. These things can extend life, but can't save the root. The real path, is still the Tao fruit. He closed his eyes again. The Tao fruit in the sea of consciousness vibrated gently. Among the thousands of figures, one figure suddenly lit up. That was an old man, white hair hanging over his shoulders, body withered, sitting in front of a black sword monument. Behind him, were dense broken swords. Some swords were rusty, some sword tips were still cold. On some swords, even stained with dried blood. The snow was filling the sky. 7 figures stood at the entrance of the sword graveyard, some holding sabers. sabers, some gripping swords, some carrying iron cases. They were all kneeling, but that kind of kneeling was not respect, but coercion. Gu Chongjin just saw this scene clearly, and his whole body was pulled in by that cause and effect. The next moment, he opened his eyes. A bone-chilling cold came, not the secret room of Spirit Path Peak, nor the Xianyang sect, but a deserted sword graveyard. The wind and snow pressed the heaven and earth white. All around were broken swords stuck in the ground. He was sitting on a cold stone platform, with a simple long sword beside his hand. The body was very old. The blood was very withered. The meridians were dry. The bones were cold. Even his breathing carried a rot. Gu Chongjin was silent for a while. Then his face turned black little by little. No, again, he originally thought. For the first time the Dao fruit guided. At least it should find him a young and strong me. Not saying an 18-year-old genius, but a 30 or 40-year-old middle-aged swordsman would do. But the result? 100-year-old sword god. 100-year sword god. Sounds scary/impressive. But to put it bluntly, isn't it still an old thing? Gu Chongjin almost laughed with anger. I thought the lifespan crisis was easy to solve. But in the heavens and worlds of me, is there not a single younger one? In his mind, confused memories surged. Dying rivers and lakes. Sword graveyard. 100-year-old sword god. Gu Chongjin entered the Grandmaster at 30, defeated all the swordsmen in the world at 50, retired to the sword graveyard after 60, accepted 7 disciples. These 7 people were all taught by his own hands. Some were orphans. Some were orphans of enemies. Some were outcasts of the rivers and lakes. He gave them sword techniques, gave them fame, gave them the qualification to stand in the rivers and lakes. But now his blood is withered, and these 7 good disciples joined together to go up the mountain. The reason is also very familiar. Master is old. The inheritance of the sword graveyard cannot be broken. Please master, hand over the sword graveyard key, and pass down 10,000 swords returned to 1. Gu Chongjin finished digesting these memories. His eyes were cold. Good. The Gu family forcing the patriarch to go to his death. Disciples forcing the master to hand over the inheritance. How come this plot is connected? He didn't dare to kill randomly in the cultivation world, because there were nascent soul-old monsters pressing on top of the Xianyang sect. If he really lifted the table, it would be easy to bury himself as well. But it's different here. Wuxia world. 100-year-old sword god. Unbeatable in the world. Even if the blood is withered, he is still unbeatable in the world. Gu Chongjin slowly raised his head, kneeling to die. Old man is afraid you won't be convinced. In the wind and snow, after this sentence fell, the entrance of the sword graveyard was frighteningly quiet. 7 disciples were kneeling on the snow. Their faces all changed, especially Xiao Chunzhou. He looked up at Gu Chongjin. In his eyes, there was first confusion, then an uncontrollable embarrassment. They went up the mountain today, indeed to force the palace. But forcing the palace also needs a nice-sounding statement. What sword path inheritance? What world's common people? What devil cult invasion? All are steps. As long as the master steps down the steps, hands over the sword graveyard key, passes down 10,000 swords returned to 1, everyone's face would be okay. When the rivers and lakes mention this matter in the future, they would also say, the Jin Shui sword god is old. The 7 great disciples inherit his sword path. Go down the mountain to eliminate demons. How nice it sounds. But now Gu Chongjin's kneeling to die directly tore off this layer of fig leaf. Xiao Chunzhou slowly stood up. The snow fell on his shoulders. His hand also gripped the long sword at his waist. Master. This master already had little respect left. The disciple didn't want to reach this step. Gu Chongjin looked at him, didn't speak. He wanted to see. What else could this filial disciple fart out? Xiao Chunzhou took a deep breath. His voice became heavy. Nowadays the devil cult is going east, breaking through 3 states. The Black Lotus demon venerable has even seriously injured the head of the Sushin sword sect. The righteous path of the world is crumbling. The master suppressed the rivers and lakes with 1 sword back then, respected as the Jin Shui sword god. Who in the world does not respect? But you are old, he said here. There was even a bit of pain in his eyes. Your blood is withered. The hand holding the sword is no longer steady. If the sword graveyard inheritance continues to stay in your hands, it will only be buried in the yellow soil with you. The disciple can't bear it. Can't bear to see the world's sword path cut off, and can't bear to see the righteous common people slaughtered by the devil cult. The disciples behind also stood up. Some lowered their heads and didn't speak, their eyes flashing. Others gripped their swords directly. Xiao Chunzhou seemed to have finally convinced himself. His waist and back straightened a bit. So today, the disciple is bold to request the master to hand over the sword graveyard key. From now on, the disciple will inherit the name of Jin Shui sword god, and take all the junior brothers and sisters down the mountain. The 7 swords come out of the sword graveyard to wipe out the demons in the world. This is not for private. This is for the common people of the world. Gu Chongjin finished listening, and was silent, not moved, but there were too many elements. He didn't know which one to curse first for a while. Common people of the world. Righteous path in crisis. Devil cult invasion. Master is old. Disciple can't bear it. Good guy. Why can this set of words be heard in every world? In the Xianyang sect, someone said, for the sake of the sect's great righteousness, please, patriarch, go to your death. Arriving at the sword graveyard, and someone said again, for the sake of the common people of the world, please master, hand over the inheritance. Gu Chongjin Chongjin even doubted whether the ungrateful wolves of these heavens and worlds had attended the same school. The rhetoric is so unified. He flipped deep into the memories of this body. Very quickly, Gu Chongjin laughed. So that's how it is. Xiao Chenzhou spoke so righteously. But behind the scenes, it wasn't like that at all. 3 months ago, Xiao Chenzhou went down the mountain and met the saintess of the Sushin sword sect, Lu Yuetzi. That woman was indeed good-looking. Her sword techniques were also not bad. Her mouth was even better. A sentence like, "Senior brother Xiao is the head disciple of the Jin Shui sword god. If you can inherit the sword graveyard, you will surely be the leader of the world's righteous path," coaxed Xiao Chenzhou until he couldn't find north. Later, the Sushin sword sect fought with the demon cult and didn't win. Lu Yuetzi was injured. Xiao Chenzhou was anxious. Anxious to stand up for her. Anxious to prove himself. Anxious to let the rivers and lakes know he was not the head disciple who could never lift his head under the sword god's feet. Thus, he returned to the sword graveyard and dragged along 6 junior brothers and sisters. To put it plainly, what common people of the world, what righteous path in crisis. It was just being flattered by a woman for a few sentences, and having his brain burned out by ambition. Gu Chongjin was truly laughed into anger. Xiao Chenzhou. His voice was not loud. Xiao Chenzhou looked up. "Disciple is here." Gu Chongjin looked at him and said slowly, "If you had directly said, you want the sword graveyard, you want 10,000 swords returned to one, you want this title of Jin Shui sword god from me, the old man, I might have thought higher of you, but you just had to drag in the common people of the world. What? Does the demon cult kill all the way into your brain?" Xiao Chenzhou's face darkened. "Master, watch your words." Gu Chongjin smiled. "Watch my words? You brought people to the sword graveyard to force the palace, and you tell me to watch my words? Xiao Chenzhou, you haven't learned much in terms of sword techniques all these years, but your face has become quite thick." The faces of the disciples behind turned ugly. The 5th disciple couldn't help but speak. "Master, senior brother is also for the big picture." Gu Chongjin's gaze swept over. That person was looked at by him. The following words were instantly stuck in his throat. Gu Chongjin said coldly, "I am speaking. Is it your turn to interrupt?" With just one look, cold sweat broke out on the 5th disciple's back. Only then did he remember. This old man in front of him, even if his blood was withered, was once the sword god who suppressed the entire rivers and lakes for 60 years. Xiao Chenzhou took a step forward, blocking in front of the others. "Master, you are truly old." His voice turned completely cold. "If you were still the Jin Shui sword god of the past, I would naturally not dare to draw my sword. But as you are now, you even need to borrow the sword to support yourself when you stand up. I don't want to hurt you. As long as you hand over the secret key, I will still treat you as a master, and provide for you in your old age." Provide for in old age. Again these 4 words. Gu Chongjin's eyelids twitched. He is allergic to such words now. Very allergic. Gu Chongjin lowered his head and looked at the sword in his hand. Then looked at Xiao Chenzhou. "You think I am old?" Xiao Chenzhou did not retreat. "Yes. You think my sword is no longer sharp?" "Yes. You think you can take a few of my sword strikes?" Xiao Chenzhou was silent for a while. Afterwards, he slowly drew his sword. The sword edge left the sheath. The cold light reflected the snow. "Disciple dares not deceive the master. Today, I will let master have 3 strikes." Once these words were out, the eyes of the disciples behind him changed instantly. Letting 3 strikes. It sounds like respecting the master and the Tao. In reality, it is telling everyone, he, Xiao Chenzhou, is no longer afraid of Gu Chongjin. Even if he lets 3 strikes, he can still win. Gu Chongjin looked at him, and suddenly cursed. F*******. Xiao Chenzhou was stunned. He had never heard the master say such vulgar language. Gu Chongjin was truly angered. Letting him have 3 strikes? A disciple. Bringing people to force the palace. Opening his mouth about providing for his old age. Closing his mouth about the common people of the world. And finally wanting to let him have 3 strikes. How can this person be so cheap? Gu Chongjin raised his hand, without drawing his sword, just aligning his fingers and slashing. The wind and snow stopped abruptly. A wisp of sword aura flew out from his fingertip. Very light. So light it looked like a line of snow. Xiao Chenzhou's pupils shrank violently. He drew his sword to block. Clang. The sound of metal clashing exploded in the sword graveyard. Xiao Chenzhou slid backward for 3 zhang. His boots plowed 2 deep marks in the snow. His hand gripping the sword was shaking. The tiger's mouth was split. Blood flowed down the sword hilt. The expressions of the other 6 changed completely. Senior brother. Xiao Chenzhou stared fixedly at Gu Chongjin. How is it possible? Master is clearly blood-withered. That strike just now wasn't even a real strike, just a sword aura. But why was it still so heavy? Gu Chongjin flicked his fingers. Letting me have 3 strikes? The first strike. Can you take it? Xiao Chenzhou's face was livid. He had already released his words just now. If he retreats now, then it's not about losing the sword. It's about losing his dignity. He gritted his teeth and said, "Come again." Gu Chongjin smiled. Fine. The second sword aura fell. This time, it was 30% faster than just now. Xiao Chenzhou roared. The long sword in his hand turned into countless sword shadows. This is the Hanjiang sword style that Gu Chongjin taught him back then. The sword light was like water, continuous and never-ending, placed in the rivers and lakes. It indeed counts as a first-class sword technique, but in Gu Chongjin's eyes, the loopholes are as many as a sieve. He didn't even need to look carefully. The sword aura passed through the myriad of sword shadows, and accurately pointed at Xiao Chenzhou's shoulder. Puff! Blood sprayed out. Half of Xiao Chenzhou's body went numb. His long sword almost slipped from his hand. He staggered back. His face finally went pale. Gu Chongjin said lightly, "The third variation of the Hanjiang sword style. The wrist is half an inch too low. Taught you for 20 years, and you are still in this state." Anger appeared in the bottom of Xiao Chenzhou's eyes. This tone, still that same tone. From childhood to adulthood, Master was always like this, no matter what level he practiced to. In Master's eyes, it was always lacking a little, lacking half an inch, lacking half a breath. What Xiao Chenzhou hated most was this. Clearly the whole rivers and lake said he was the head disciple of the sword graveyard, capable of inheriting the name of Jin Shui sword god in the future. But Master never acknowledged it. Why? He suddenly looked up, his voice hoarse. "Since Master feels that the disciple is not up to it, then today, I will let Master see whether I have the qualification to inherit the sword graveyard." As his voice fell, Xiao Chenzhou's figure exploded. No more letting, no more pretending. The long sword rolled up the wind and snow all over the ground, and stabbed directly at Gu Chongjin's forehead. The hearts of the other six shook. Senior brother actually took the initiative to strike. Gu Chongjin's eyes had no fluctuations. "That's right. Would have been fine if you did this earlier. What filial son and grandson were you pretending to be?" He shifted his footsteps, avoiding the sword tip. Xiao Chenzhou's sword momentum was extremely fast, stabbing 13 strikes in a row, each strike aiming for the vital points: forehead, throat, heart. Dantian, where did it look like he didn't want to hurt the master? This was wishing he could be chopped into pieces. Gu Chongjin retreated, while watching, not because of fear, but because he was flipping through the sword path memories of this body. The sword technique experience of the 100-year-old sword god surged up little by little like a tide. How to break every strike, how to kill in every breath. Xiao Chenzhou's movements became slower and slower in his eyes, so slow that it was somewhat laughable. The last bit of adaptation in Gu Chongjin's heart also completely disappeared. He stood firm. Xiao Chenzhou stabbed with a sword. Gu Chongjin raised the simple long sword in his hand, and finally struck. No myriad of sword lights, no heaven-shaking earth, just a forward thrust. Puff! The sword tip pierced through Xiao Chenzhou's throat. The wind and snow stopped. Xiao Chenzhou's sword also stopped 3 inches in front of Gu Chongjin's forehead. His eyes widened bit by bit, as if he didn't understand until he died why he lost so quickly. Gu Chongjin looked at him. His voice was very light. "In the next life, before forcing the palace, weigh whether you are worthy." The long sword pulled out. Blood sprayed on the snow. Xiao Chenzhou fell straight down. Bang! The corpse fell into the snow. The remaining 6 disciples were all stupid. No one spoke. No one moved. No one even dared to breathe. In their minds, only one thought remained. Senior brother is dead. Master killed senior brother. Heavenly disaster. Master has gone crazy. Xiao Chenzhou's corpse lay in the snow. The sword scar on his throat was still gushing blood. The blood was quickly covered by the wind and snow. But that scene was smashed hard into everyone's mind. The 6 disciples stood on the spot, their faces pale. They had thought of many outcomes. For example, Master being furious. For example, Master refusing to hand over the sword graveyard key. For example, both sides fighting. Senior brother suppressing Master, then using the big picture as a reason, requesting Master to abdicate. They even thought about how to announce it to the outside world, saying Master was old, knowing his blood was withered, not bearing to see the inheritance cut off. So he passed. 10,000 swords returned to one, to his head disciple Xiao Chenzhou. How decent. What a story for the rivers and lakes. But who could have imagined? Gu Chongjin raised his hand and struck twice. The third strike killed the head disciple directly. Killed cleanly, without a moment of hesitation. This is not a 100-year-old sword god. This is a 100-year-old madman, right? Not only were they stupid, the righteous people hiding in the wind and snow outside the sword graveyard were also all stupid. Behind a pine forest, several Sushin sword sect disciples opened their eyes wide. One of the girls subconsciously covered her mouth. Senior brother Xiao, dead? No one answered her, because everyone hadn't reacted yet. This script is wrong, according to reason. Shouldn't it be the old sword god is old? The disciple explains the emotion, moves with reason. Finally the old sword god is moved by the great justice of the world, and hands over the inheritance. Then Xiao Chenzhou inherits the name of Jin Shui sword god, leads the 7 swords down the mountain. Oh no, 7 swords come out of the sword graveyard, sweeping the demon cult all the way, finally standing shoulder to shoulder with Sushin sword sect Saintess Lu Yuetzi in the rivers and lakes, achieving a story of the righteous path. This is so smooth. This is so reasonable. How come it went wrong at the first step when it got to Gu Chongjin? He killed the male lead. Sushin sword sect Saintess Lu Yuetzi was also stunned. She was wearing a white fox fur. Her face was already somewhat sickly. At this moment, it was as white as snow. No, 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 no. How did he die? Xiao Chenzhou is dead. What should she do later? The Sushin sword sect led people to the sword graveyard this time, just to borrow the inheritance to fight the demon cult. By the way, let Xiao Chenzhou take over the title of sword god. Once this matter spreads, she and Xiao Chenzhou are a righteous pair. One Sushin saintess, one sword graveyard new master. How nice it sounds. Now Xiao Chenzhou is gone. Who can she stand shoulder to shoulder with in the rivers and lakes? Can't really stand with that 100-year-old sword god, right? How will will the rivers and lakes spread the news? Sushin Saintus loves the 100-year-old sword god. Lu Yuezi's face turned green just thinking about it. And inside the sword graveyard, the remaining 6 disciples finally came to their senses. The second disciple Lu Guichen drew his sword abruptly, his voice trembling. Master, how could you kill senior brother? The fourth disciple's eyes were red, as if he had suffered a great grievance. Senior brother was just for the sake of the common people of the world. What did he do wrong? The fifth disciple shouted in a breakdown. Master, you disappoint us too much. We respected you and loved you. Only then did we come to ask you to pass down the sword graveyard. But you dealt a painful blow. The sixth disciple gritted his teeth, his face full of grief and indignation. Could it be that in your eyes, the righteous path of the world is not as good as that bit of inheritance in your hands? Gu Changjin's head hurt from listening, really hurt. He found that these people have a problem. They will never say they want to snatch. They will only say others won't give. Not giving is selfish. Not giving is ignoring the big picture. Not giving is making them disappointed. He was very familiar with this set of things. It was like this when that woman lied to him in his previous life. It was like this when the Gu family forced him to go to his death. It was like this when the Xianyang sect made him sign the death match contract. Now it's 7 disciples. The taste hasn't changed at all. Gu Changjin sighed. Are your brains sick? The 6 were stunned. Gu Changjin gripped the sword. His eyes turned cold. He brought you here to force the palace. I killed him. You helped him force the palace. I kill you. Is this hard to understand? The second disciple Lu Guichen's face changed drastically. You. Gu Changjin was too lazy to listen. Forget it. Kill them all. He is also me. Since it is my obsession, then it probably won't be some stupid thing that kneels and begs for mercy, trying to reform the disciples. Gu Changjin has already found a feeling. The final obsession of this 100-year-old sword god is not that the inheritance cannot be broken, nor is it hoping for the disciples to turn back, but unwillingness. Unwillingness to have crossed the rivers and lakes for a lifetime, only to be forced to the sword graveyard by the ungrateful wolves he raised with his own hands when he was old. Unwillingness to have clearly still been able to strike with the sword, yet be pressured to bow his head by them using the great justice of the world. Then what else is there to say? Slaughter them. Gu Changjin's wrist turned. The long sword lowered. On the snow, the broken sword sounded in unison. The faces of the 6 disciples changed instantly. Just now they dared to scold, because senior brother died too suddenly. Anger overcame fear. But now Gu Changjin really wanted to kill them. That fear instantly rushed from the soles of their feet to the top of their heads. This is the Jin Shui sword god. Even if old, even if blood withered, killing them is still like killing chickens. Just at this time, on the outskirts of the sword graveyard, an old voice sounded. Sword god Gu. Wait. The wind and snow were pushed away by a palm force. Several figures walked out from behind the pine forest, mountain rocks, and cliffs. Sushin Sword Sect, Fuhu Villa, Jingang Temple, Righteous Alliance. Good guy. There are quite a few people coming. The one standing in front is an old monk wearing a gray cassock. Jingang Temple Master Huikong, a person with a lot of weight in the righteous path of the rivers and lakes. He put his hands together, his face full of compassion. Sword god Gu. This old monk respects you for suppressing the rivers and lakes with one sword in the past, and also respects you for guarding the sword graveyard for 60 years. But today's matter is really too much. A Righteous Alliance elder beside him also said solemnly, although young hero Shao was offensive, he is after all your direct disciple. You killed him with one strike. Isn't that too extreme? The master of Fuhu Villa was even more direct. Gu Changjin. Now the demon cult is powerful. The righteous path of the world is just at a time when people are needed. You refuse to leave the mountain and that's fine. But you actually slaughter the younger generation of the righteous path. What exactly do you want to do? Once these righteous seniors appeared, the 6 disciples' legs, which had gone soft, became hard again. Lu Guichen immediately took half a step back, and said sorrowfully, Seniors, you have all seen it. Master has gone crazy. The 4th disciple also hurriedly said, we just wanted to ask Master to pass down the sword graveyard, to contribute to the righteous path. But he killed senior brother first, and now wants to kill us. The 5th disciple seemed to have grabbed a straw, directly kneeling towards those righteous people. Please seniors decide for us. Gu Changjin watched this scene, almost laughing out loud. Just a moment ago it was, Master, one sentence after another. Now that the seniors are here, Master instantly turns into a madman, changing faces so fast. It's a pity not to sing opera. However, those righteous people were not all fools. Many didn't rush to speak. After all, they also knew in their hearts, this matter is not good to look at. Disciples forcing the master to hand over the inheritance. No matter how you wash it, it's foul. But Master Huikong still stood out. He sighed. Sword god Gu. This old monk knows you have grievances in your heart. But now the Black Lotus demon venerable is rampant. The demon cult wants to disturb the world. If the righteous path continues to consume itself, it will only make the common people suffer. Young hero Shao is already dead. Let this matter end here. If sword god Gu's body is still okay, why not go down the mountain with us, to resist the demon cult together? With the might of sword god Gu, the righteous path of the world will surely have a great boost in morale. Gu Changjin looked at him. His eyes were very calm. Fine. This monk is even more extreme. First saying Shao Chenzhou is dead, so let him die. Then, turning his head, he wants him to go down the mountain to risk his life. Are you righteous people wholesale abacuses? The sound is one louder than the other. Lu Yuezi beside had an even uglier face. She couldn't help but whisper, "Let senior sword god Gu go down the mountain." "Then what about senior brother Shao?" The junior sister beside whispered. "Isn't senior brother Shao already dead?" Lu Yuezi's mouth twitched. "Yes, dead. But the problem is Shao Chenzhou is dead. The situation she laid out before is also dead. Can't really make her walk shoulder to shoulder with the 100-year-old sword god, right? That would be too ridiculous to spread out. Others are heroes and beauties. She would be a grandfather and granddaughter couple." Lu Yuezi felt more suffocated the more she thought about it. Gu Chongjin originally wanted to speak, but when the words reached his lips, he stopped again. He was waiting. No, to be precise, he had been dragging things since just now. Why listen to Shao Chenzhou's nonsense? Why listen to these righteous people blah blah? Did he really have a good temper? Of course not. He just entered this world, and found that the heaven and earth spiritual energy here is pitifully thin. Can't say there is none, but it is much worse than the Xianyang sect side. The body of this 100-year-old sword god practices martial arts. His Gu Chongjin true body practices immortality. One is true energy, one is spiritual power. The levels are different, but the problem is, this broken place has too little spiritual energy. He wanted to force the operation of some immortal cultivation methods. Need time to gather energy. The few strikes just now when killing Shao Chenzhou. Used the sword path foundation of the 100-year-old sword god himself. Able to kill disciples. Able to shock the people of the rivers and lakes. But to deal with this group of righteous masters in one breath. Still have to accumulate energy. Now it's almost time. Gu Chongjin felt the wisp of spiritual power barely condensed in his meridians. His mouth curled up slightly. Fine. Time to finish the work. Just as he was about to make a move, behind a mountain cliff in the distance, suddenly came a burst of loud laughter. Ha 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 ha. The laughter rolled over the wind and snow, shaking the broken swords in the sword graveyard until they hummed. Gu Chongjin's movements paused. He looked into the distance. In his eyes it was not heavy, but speechless. No, are there more? Is today's sword graveyard open house day? Everyone can come to join the fun. At the end of the wind and snow, a group of black-robed people walked on the snow. Their movement was extremely fast, their clothes fluttering, like a group of crows grazing on the surface of the snow. The person in the lead had a tall figure, wearing a black cloak, his face wearing half a red bronze ghost mask. Every step he took, the snow ground seemed to be burned open by fire. The faces of the righteous people changed instantly. Black Lotus Demon Venerable. How is it possible? How could he be here? Who leaked our whereabouts? The demon cult actually came too. Lu Yuezi's face was even whiter. Master Huikong also frowned. The Buddhist beads in his hand tightened slightly. Black Lotus Demon Venerable stood outside the sword graveyard. His gaze swept over the crowd, finally landed on Gu Chongjin. Sword God Gu, long time no see. This venerable originally thought that today I could only watch a good play of master and disciple turning against each other. Didn't expect. I could see you killing your disciple with my own eyes. Splendid. Really splendid. The people of the demon cult laughed along. The righteous side was like facing a great enemy. The 6 disciples were so scared that they shrank behind the righteous people. Gu Chongjin looked at the righteous side, and looked at the demon cult, finally lowered his head and looked at the sword graveyard under his feet. He suddenly sighed, feeling like you took my house as a party venue, right? No one understood this sentence, but everyone saw. Gu Chongjin slowly raised his sword. On the sword edge, a wisp of spiritual light that did not belong to this world lit up. His eyes turned completely cold. Slaughter them all. Slaughter them all. Once Black Lotus Demon Venerable appeared, the wind and snow in the sword graveyard seemed to be cold by 3 points. The righteous crowd had just been surrounding Gu Chongjin talking about great justice, talking about common people, talking about how the righteous path cannot consume itself. But in a turn of the head, the demon cult really came, and the ones coming were not small fish and shrimps, but the Black Lotus Demon Venerable. This person entered the demon cult 10 years ago, killed his way up to Black Lotus Mountain 5 years ago, consecutively beheaded 3 demon cult protectors, hardly sat on the position of demon venerable. In recent years, he has led the demon cult to go east, consecutively breaking through 3 states, beating the righteous path until they couldn't even lift their heads. Master Huikong, who had a compassionate look just now, his face changed on the spot. The master of Fuhu Villa gripped his long saber tightly. The righteous alliance elder also took half a step back. When talking about common people of the world, one was louder than the other, but when really seeing the Black Lotus Demon Venerable, the body is quite honest. Master Huikong hurriedly looked at Gu Chongjin. Sword God Gu, the Demon Venerable is present. Please make a move. The righteous alliance elder also hurriedly said. Sword God Gu, you were also the leader of the righteous path in the past. Now the demon cult has killed their way to the sword graveyard. You cannot sit idly by. The master of Fuhu Villa's face twitched even more. Put aside the previous matter. Right now we should eliminate demons and defend the path. Gu Chongjin didn't even pay attention to them. He stood in the center of the sword graveyard, holding a long sword. Surprisingly closed his eyes slowly. Correct. Closed his eyes. It was noisy everywhere. Righteous path noisy. Demon cult also noisy. And those few ungrateful disciples who didn't die were also breathing there like broken bellows. He listened and found it annoying. And who knows if people will come later. This sword graveyard is like a market today. Wave after wave. Save some spiritual power first. Enough then talk. He closed his eyes. The faces of the righteous people became even uglier. Master Huikong frowned tightly. Sword God Gu, now is not the time to be willful. The Righteous Alliance elder said coldly. Could it be that Sword God Gu really wants to watch the demon cult slaughter the righteous path because of personal grievances? The master of Fuhu Villa was even more sarcastic. The Jin Shui sword god who suppressed the rivers and lakes with one sword in the past, now actually doesn't even have the guts to draw a sword to eliminate demons. Gu Chongjin's eyelids didn't even move. Let them talk. Settle the account together later. Black Lotus Demon Venerable heard these words. Instead laughed out loud. Ha 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 ha. Interesting. Really interesting. He stood in the wind and snow, revealing half a pale face under the red bronze ghost mask. This venerable has opened his eyes today. You righteous people. When forcing people to hand over the inheritance, you talk about the common people. Now that the demon cult has arrived, you want people to risk their lives for you again. The four words, hypocritical and pretentious, really let you play it through. The faces of the righteous were livid, but Black Lotus Demon Venerable changed the topic, and looked at Gu Chongjin again. But Sword God Gu also disappointed me. Famous for decades in the rivers and lakes. Originally thought you still had some backbone. Didn't expect. You are also a person who clings to life and fears death. Quite agile when killing the disciple. But when you really see me, you don't even dare to open your eyes. His laughter was even louder. This is the righteous sword god. Ridiculous. Gu Chongjin was still closing his eyes. In his meridians, those wisps of meager spiritual energy were being forcibly induced by him. Very slow, but enough. Black Lotus Demon Venerable saw him not move, and didn't waste his breath. His gaze swept, landing on Master Huikong and others. Since Sword God Gu doesn't want to move, then I will send you on your way first. As the voice fell, the black-robed demons instantly rushed into the sword graveyard. The sound of killing rose suddenly. The wind and snow were shattered by true energy. Black Lotus Demon Venerable's figure flashed, almost turning into a black shadow. A Righteous Alliance expert just drew his sword. His chest was slapped collapsed. His whole person flew backward, hitting a broken sword, and died on the spot. An elder of Fuhu Villa roared and lunged, the saber light like a tiger. Black Lotus Demon Venerable raised his hand and grabbed. 5 fingers hooked the back of the saber, and slammed a palm onto his forehead. The second one. Immediately after, an old woman from Sushin Sword Sect stabbed with sword light. Black Lotus Demon Venerable didn't even look much. Black robe rolled. A black lotus dart flew out of his sleeve, piercing through the throat directly. The third one. In the blink of an eye, 3 righteous experts died. The righteous people were completely panicked. The remaining 6 disciples didn't dare to scold Gu Chongjin anymore. Hurriedly formed a sword array, facing the protectors of the demon cult. The 7 of them came out of the sword graveyard together. The sword array indeed has something. Missing Shao Chunzhou, the power was a notch lower, but for a short time they could also block the siege of the protectors. But it was only blocking. The real trouble is Black Lotus Demon Venerable. He was like a black sharp knife, interweaving back and forth in the crowd. No one could stop him. Master Huikong's string of Buddhist beads was shot out, shattered by his palm. Fuhu Villa Master's long saber slashed down, avoided by his sideways dodge, and his chest bone was cracked by his backhand kick. Righteous Alliance Elder roared, "Form array! Form array!" But before the array was formed, people were already chaotic. Black Lotus Demon Venerable killed until he was excited. Suddenly his gaze turned, landing on the 6 sword graveyard disciples. The 6 felt a chill in their hearts simultaneously. Lu Guichen shouted, "Seniors, save me!" No one could save them. The black shadow swept past. The first head flew up, then the second, the third. The sword array instantly shattered. The remaining few still wanted to escape, but Black Lotus Demon Venerable's palm had black energy surging. 1 slap for each. All slapped to death on the snow. The last disciple knelt on the ground, crying and looking at Gu Chongjin. "Master, save me!" Gu Chongjin closed his eyes, didn't move. Black Lotus Demon Venerable's palm fell. Bang! 6 disciples, all dead. The entrance of the sword graveyard was completely quiet for a moment. Black Lotus Demon Venerable didn't continue the pursuit, but slowly retreated back to his original place. He looked at Gu Chongjin. There was a bit of hesitation in his eyes for the first time. Not right. This old thing is too steady. He killed the righteous experts. Gu Chongjin didn't move. Now he killed all the remaining 6 disciples. Gu Chongjin still didn't move. The intelligence said. Gu Chongjin raised these 7 disciples as his own sons, taught sword techniques, gave resources, even broke the rules many times to go down the mountain for the sake of the disciples. But now, his biological sons are all dead. This old thing doesn't even open his eyes. Black Lotus Demon Venerable's heart felt a bit chilly. Is this still the righteous sword god? Why does he feel more demonic than him? At this moment, the righteous people on the field had been surrounded by the demon cult. Everyone was injured. In the wind and snow, everywhere was blood. Master Huikong's face was pale. Blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. Fuhu Villa Master leaned on his saber. His arms were shaking. Righteous Alliance Elder lost an arm. His face was as ugly as a dead person. They looked at Gu Chongjin again. This time, there wasn't much force in the sound. Sword God Gu, beg you to make a move. This old monk spoke improperly earlier, but the demon cult is present. Please Sword God Gu, for the sake of the common people. Old Sword God Gu, if you don't make a move again, today the sword graveyard will really be a river of blood. Lu Yuetzi also had red eyes, her voice trembling. Old Sword God Gu, senior brother Xiao and the others are already dead. Could it be you still want to watch everyone die here? Gu Chongjin still didn't move. Black Lotus Demon Venerable narrowed his eyes, sneered, don't shout. This old thing, I'm afraid he has already passed away. Pity I have been staring at him all along. I overestimated him. As soon as the words fell, Gu Chongjin opened his eyes. The wind and snow stopped. He looked at Black Lotus Demon Venerable. His tone was very light. Heard you tell everyone I was dead. Black Lotus Demon Venerable's heart jumped inexplicably. Everyone's gaze also landed on Gu Chongjin at this moment. He clearly was still that withered old man. White hair, old robe, blood withered, not even having a bit of inner strength fluctuation. But don't know why. The moment he opened his eyes, the whole sword graveyard seemed to be pressed by something. Black Lotus Demon Venerable sensed carefully. Afterwards suddenly smiled, playing God and devil. Gu Chongjin, you don't even have inner strength left on you, and you still want to scare me? He stepped out. Black robe rolled. His whole person turned into a black shadow, pouncing directly at Gu Chongjin. This venerable will send you, the sword god, to the west today. Gu Chongjin looked up. Without drawing his sword, he just pointed with his feet. The withered body surprisingly rose into the mid-air lightly, like a piece of snow, also like a sword. The next moment, he aligned his fingers and slashed. A tiny sword light swept out from his fingertip. That sword light was very thin, so thin that it was like a silver thread in the wind and snow. But the moment it appeared, everyone's eyes were pricked. The smile on Black Lotus Demon Venerable's face froze. He wanted to hide, but couldn't hide. He wanted to block, but couldn't block. The silver-white sword light pierced through his forehead. Black Lotus Demon Venerable's figure stopped in midair. The red bronze ghost mask split in two. The viciousness, arrogance, incredulity in his eyes, all solidified. Then his whole person fell straight down. Bang! Smashed into the snow. The Black Lotus Demon Venerable, who the righteous path of the world faced like a great enemy, just died like this. One strike. No, can't even count as one strike. Just a wisp of light slashed by Gu Chongjin raising his hand. The sword graveyard was dead silent. The righteous people were stupid. The demon cult people were stupid. Lu Yuetsi was also stupid. No, you were so strong. Why didn't you make a move just now? Over at Fuhu Villa, a young man suddenly cried out in a breakdown. You could clearly kill him. You were clearly so strong. Why didn't you make a move earlier? My father was just killed by the demon cult, and you are still the old sword god. You. Gu Chongjin looked at him, smiled. Missing your father that much? The young man was stunned. Gu Chongjin raised his hand. I'll send you down to see him right now. The sword light fell. The young man's voice stopped abruptly. The next moment, Gu Chongjin's sleeve shook. The wind and snow and the sky rolled backward. In the sword graveyard, countless broken swords vibrated simultaneously. Sword lights pulled up from the snow, like sword souls that had slept for many years opening their eyes all at once. Righteous path, demon cult, protectors, elders, saintess, disciples. The expressions on everyone's faces turned into horror at this moment. Sword god Gu, what are you doing? Stop, old sword god. Spare our lives. Gu Chongjin was expressionless. Too noisy. The sword light fell. The whole mountain turned white, and also turned red. A few breaths later, the sword graveyard was quiet, truly quiet, except for the wind and snow. There was not a single human voice left. Gu Chongjin landed back on the ground. His body swayed slightly. This bit of spiritual energy, in the end, was still too little, but it was enough. Those who deserved to die were all dead. He looked up, at the mountain peak in the distance, suddenly feeling a bit of mischievous desire. The last few wisps of spiritual energy would be a waste if not used. Gu Chongjin joined his fingers into a sword, and slashed towards the distance. Boom! A sword light spanned the wind and snow, slamming heavily onto the mountain peak. The entire peak shook violently. The mountain wall cracked. A massive sword scar extended from the mountainside all the way to the top, as if it had split the whole mountain in two. Gu Chongjin retracted his hand, and laughed in a low voice. Since I've come, I'll leave a souvenir. The sword graveyard was quiet, quiet in the true sense. The wind and snow were still falling, but all those shouts of killing, eliminating demons and defending the path, and the great justice for the common people, were all gone. The righteous path was gone, the demon cult was gone, and the 7 good disciples were gone too. Only a field of corpses remained, and a mountain full of broken swords. Gu Chongjin's figure was still floating in midair, old robes fluttering, white hair blown into a mess by the wind and snow. The whole person looked still aged, but no one dared to say he was old. At least, those who were approaching the sword graveyard didn't dare. Gu Chongjin looked down at his own hand, very withered, very thin. The blood and energy beneath the skin had decayed to the extreme. After slashing out that sword just now, the last bit of vitality in this body was also about to be drained dry, not from fatigue, but because the time was up. This body of the 100-year-old sword god originally couldn't hold on for much longer. Now that the obsession had been fulfilled, the Tao traces should return to their place. Gu Chongjin could feel the Tao fruit deep in his sea of consciousness was pulling him back. The time for harvest had arrived. However, before he completely dissipated, he noticed many auras approaching in the distance, not weak, and very orderly, not scattered loose cultivators, but people from the imperial court. Gu Chongjin twitched the corner of his mouth. As expected, the rivers and lakes were in such a chaotic dark mess. How could the Imperial Court have no movement at all? Righteous path, demon cult, sword graveyard, everything had been beaten into a porridge. The Imperial Court must have been watching for a long time. It's just that these people were quite patient, waiting until he slaughtered both the righteous and demonic sides, before daring to approach. Smart, but also quite boring. Gu Chongjin suddenly felt a bit of mischief. Since they had come, if he didn't put on a show, he would be sorry for the identity of this 100-year-old sword god. He tapped his foot, and his figure rose again, standing in midair, the wind and snow rotating around him. The last wisp of spiritual energy was pressed into his voice, spreading out in all directions. 100 years of sitting withered before the sword graveyard. One sword once suppressed the old rivers and lakes. Today the killing of disciples ends the worldly fate. Only then do I know my body is not of the human realm. Righteous and demonic all turn to snow before the mountain. 10,000 swords hum in unison to send me to immortality. If you ask where Chongjin goes, opening the sky again above the blue void. As the voice fell, the Imperial experts who had just arrived in the distance, all froze on the spot. At the foot of the mountain, thousands of armored soldiers stopped in their tracks, looking up towards the direction of the sword graveyard. Pei Hans Han, the commander of the suppression of martial arts division of the dying dynasty, wore a black cloak, his hand gripping the waist saber, his pupils constricted violently. What did he see? A mountain full of corpses. Righteous experts dead, demon cult experts dead, Black Lotus demon venerable dead. Even those 7 direct disciples of Gu Chongjin were all dead, and that 100-year-old sword god was standing in midair, white hair flying, sword intent pressing the sky, looking like a person, and yet not like a person. The next moment, a white light shone from Gu Chongjin's body, not fire, and certainly not inner strength, but more like the heaven and earth were guiding him. Pei Hanshan's face changed greatly. Sword god. He had just shouted 2 words, when that aged figure in midair was already fading little by little in the white light, finally, disappearing completely. No corpse, no falling, just like that, under the eyes of everyone, gone. The wind and snow fell. Above the sword graveyard, only that sword scar that had just split the mountain remained lying there, like a rip in the sky. Everyone from the Imperial Court was stunned. A young martial guard murmured, "My lord, what does this count as?" Pei Han was silent for a long time. Finally, he looked at the mountain full of corpses, then looked at the position where Gu Chongjin had disappeared, his voice a bit dry. Ascension in broad daylight. Later, there were always rumors in the rivers and lakes, that on that day, the Jin Shui sword god, Gu Chongjin, killed all the righteous and demonic sides in the sword graveyard. In one go, he pacified the chaos of the rivers and lakes, and subsequently ascended in broad daylight. As for why he ascended, there were many theories in the rivers and lakes. Some said, sword god Gu had too much killing in his life, gaining enlightenment in his later years, cutting off all cause and effect, and ascended away. Others said, sword god Gu walked the path of the heartless sword. Killing the disciples was just the first step. Killing all righteous and demonic was truly cutting off the worldly ties. Even more absurdly, some people summarized a so-called method of ascension. Kill the disciple to testify to the Tao. Slaughter relatives to become an immortal. For a time, many reclusive old monsters scared their own disciples into running away overnight. Of course, these things, Gu Chongjin already didn't know. In the Spirit Path Peak secret room, Gu Chongjin opened his eyes violently. The next moment, his eyes changed. In the sea of consciousness, the Tao fruit vibrated slightly. That figure of the 100-year-old sword god finally changed from blurred to clear. White hair, old robe, one person, one sword, standing before the mountain of broken swords. Subsequently, that figure dispersed like a candle in the wind, turning into countless tiny points of light, merging into the Tao fruit. Following that, flowing along the Tao fruit, into Gu Chongjin's original body. Boom! Gu Chongjin gave a muffled groan, not from pain, but because there was too much. The sword path experience of the 100-year-old sword god's life, killing memories, sword move understanding, life and death battles, all flooded in. Rivers and lake sword techniques, martial arts inner strength. These things were indeed a bit lower in level for the cultivation world. To put it harshly, not very useful. But sword path comprehension is not calculated like that. A sword is a sword. A sword in the hands of a mortal is also a sword. A sword in the hands of a cultivator is also a sword. What's more, that old thing was not simple. The more Gu Chongjin received, the brighter his eyes became. Finally, he couldn't help but curse. Holy crap. This me was practicing immortality in this martial arts world. Wuji sword body. This me, who was the 100-year-old sword god, was actually born with the Wuji sword body. It's just that the world had no cultivation inheritance, and the heaven and earth spiritual energy was pitifully thin, so he could only enter the sword through martial arts, hardly relying on secular martial arts to grind this sword body to the extreme. No wonder he could suppress the rivers and lakes with one sword for 60 years. No wonder wonder he could still kill the righteous and demonic sides until they couldn't lift their heads even when his blood was withered to that state. Even more absurdly, he had also realized sword intent. Not sword momentum, not sword aura, but the embryonic form of true sword intent. This stuff, if placed in the cultivation world, normally speaking, at least nascent soul sword cultivators are qualified to touch it. And now, it all belongs to Gu Chongjin. Good. Gu Chongjin laughed. This wave was a huge profit. The Tao fruit continued to operate. Everything remaining of the 100-year-old sword god, physical blood and energy, martial arts inner strength, soul remnants, all were refined by the Tao fruit into a pure force. Gu Chongjin gave this force a very smooth name, Gi Dao Origin. After the Tao traces return to one, the origin force feeds back to the self. The moment the Gi Dao Origin entered his body, the golden core in his dantian vibrated violently. The golden core, originally full of fine lines and on the verge of collapse, was smoothed out again by an invisible big hand. The cracks disappeared. The decay dissipated. The pill light became full again, flawless and leaking nothing. Following that, above the golden core, Jin Yang's sword intent entwined. Boom. The aura in Gu Chongjin's body climbed step by step. Golden core mid-stage. Golden core mid-stage peak. Golden core late stage. The array in the secret room lit up instantly. Layer upon layer of prohibitions were activated, forcibly suppressing the aura that spread when he broke through. Gu Chongjin slowly spat out a breath of stale air. After spitting out this breath, the whole person seemed to have become decades younger. Of course, the appearance was still old, but that rotten smell of imminent death was gone. Lifespan skyrocketed. 300 years. The life that was originally at most 3 months, suddenly became 300 years. Gu Chongjin felt the unprecedented power in his body, the smile on his face becoming thicker. Lifespan crisis solved. Golden core damage mended. Cultivation also went from golden core mid-stage in one breath to golden core late stage. More importantly, he is now a golden core late stage sword cultivator, and also mastered sword intent. This is interesting. The death match 3 days later. I'm afraid it will. Gu Chongjin leaned on the cushion, unable to help laughing out loud. Everyone hoped that this patriarch would die. Now that this patriarch is not dying, what will you do then? I really want to see the faces of that group of unfilial descendants of the Gu family quickly, and that sect leader Yun who understands the great justice. If she knew that the old thing she pushed to send to his death, suddenly not only didn't die, but became even stronger, the expression should be very beautiful. Gu Chongjin laughed for a while, and quickly collected his mind. He didn't immerse himself in the joy for too long, having lived 2 lifetimes, and received the memories of the 100-year-old sword god. He understood a principle. If you can earn one wave, you have to think about the second wave. Since the Tao fruit can guide once, then naturally it can guide a second time. If there is no limit, then he might as well go into seclusion and not come out. What death match? What sect? What Gu family? All put aside first. Directly farm the me-s. Farm until he becomes an immortal before going out. Stable. Too stable. Gu Chongjin immediately sank into the sea of consciousness, wanting to sense the second meat figure. As a result, no reaction. The Tao fruit hung there quietly. Thousands of figures were still blurred, yet not a single one lit up. Gu Chongjin frowned. The next moment, an invisible fluctuation came from the Tao fruit. He instantly understood. It's not that he can't continue, it's that the current him cannot carry it. The Tao fruit merging the me-s is not the walk in the park that mortals think, flipping through the memory stream, but melting its sword path divine intent, residual true spirit, and even lifelong obsession of that life, all into one. Previous life red dust, current life Tao foundation, plus the heaven-reaching sword intent that nearly burned out the soul of that 100-year-old sword god before he died. The 3-life state of mind and divine intent intertwined in the Naiwen Palace already had completely filled his current golden core sea of consciousness. Even the boundary walls of the Naiwen Palace, because they couldn't bear that complex and vast divine intent, faintly grew dense cracks. A cultivator's Naiwen Palace is the container carrying the true spirit. If he cannot find supreme secret methods, or treasures that expand the soul, broadening the sea of consciousness, tempering the soul, blindly opening the next me, the end can only be one. Multiple me-s souls colliding. The Naiwen Palace explodes on the spot. His own true spirit will also be washed by the violent me cause and effect into an unconscious idiot. TSK. Gu Chongjin felt a bit regretful, but could also accept it. One cannot be too greedy as a person. Of course, that was just saying it with his mouth. His heart was still very greedy. He slowly opened his eyes, and started to rethink the situation before his eyes. The death match is in 3 days. In name, it is the Xianyang sect and Qishao sect fighting over the cold marrow vein, but in the original body's memories, this matter is not that simple. The mineral vein is just an excuse placed on the surface. The real cause is Yun Qingli's precious junior brother, Lu Huaizhen, foundation establishment mid-stage, pseudo-spiritual root, but the cultivation speed is not slow, usually looks cautious and low-key, does things cleanly, but is very trusted by Yun Qingli. This time the death of the Qishao sect direct disciple also has to do with him. Gu Chongjin tapped the cushion lightly with his fingers. Pseudo-spiritual root, cultivation fast, cautious, has a female sect leader protecting him after causing trouble, and lets others die for him. Gu Chongjin narrowed his eyes. Elements being detected. In In the secret room, Gu Changjin had already paced back and forth several times. He was not panicked, but he is used to moving when thinking about things, especially in the current situation. The more he thought about it, the more he felt it had flavor. Foundation establishment mid-stage, pseudo-spiritual route, but cultivation fast, caused trouble, and has a fairy sect leader protecting him. Gu Changjin whispered in his mouth, his eyes becoming stranger and stranger. According to the script of the Child of Destiny, this kind of person generally cannot be calculated just by realm. Foundation establishment mid-stage. On the surface it is foundation establishment mid-stage. When they really fight, maybe they can pull out a pile of messy trump cards, crossing ranks to touch the golden core. Of course, Gu Changjin is now a golden core late stage, still a sword cultivator, and just got sword intent. Normally speaking, a foundation establishment mid-stage, no matter how overstandard, should not threaten him. But the problem is not this. The problem is, this death match was originally caused by Lu Huaizhen. He lifted the board of this death match, turning the old thing who was supposed to go to his death, into a golden core late stage sword cultivator. Then what about Lu Huaizhen? Will this kind of person who is suspected to be the Child of Destiny, with the script changed, pop out some new tricks? Gu Changjin doesn't like waiting for others to make a move. Waiting for others to make a move. That is an idiot. If you can press them to death in advance, why give them room to grow? He thought about it again. The protagonist of the cultivation world should be a bit different from the perverts in the fantasy world who suddenly punch and explode galaxies. Generally speaking, the cultivation protagonist is more insidious, better at laying low, doesn't necessarily carry a system. Maybe it's some small green bottle, small blue bottle, small black jar, or a grandpa hiding in a ring, or some kind of gadget that can ripen spiritual herbs, copy resources, deduce cultivation methods. The more Gu Changjin thought, the brighter his eyes became. Interesting, this kind of treasure should belong to this patriarch. Lu Huaizhen, a foundation establishment mid-stage junior, holding it is just a waste. He has solved his lifespan crisis. But in this cultivation thing, resources are never too many. Moreover, the other party is suspected to be the Child of Destiny. Can the things on the Child of Destiny be bad? Gu Changjin stopped his pace. Long nights bring dreams. Go take a look first. He waved his hand. The secret room array opened silently. The next moment, his aura quickly subsided. If the previous Gu Changjin was a crimson spiritual sword ready to be unsheathed at any time, then now, he was like a withered stone. No sound, no breath. Even the aura of the golden core late stage was pressed clean by him. Outside the spirit path peak, the sect's grand array flowed slowly. Gu Changjin took out the elder token. This thing usually looks useless, but at critical moments, it is indeed convenient. He used the elder token to mobilize a corner of the sect's grand array authority, and borrowed his own understanding of the array, silently avoiding several perception nodes, without alarming anyone. A faint sword light swept through the night, leaving the gate of the Xianyang sect. 300 miles outside the Xianyang sect, there is a continuous mountain range, called Qingmong Mountain. Qingmong Mountain is not a place with rich spiritual energy, but it is close to the Xianyang sect, and has several scattered spiritual veins, therefore, gathered many loose cultivators. Over time, a loose cultivator market formed at the foot of the mountain, selling talismans, selling pills, selling fake cultivation methods, and that kind of broken magic tool that looks like it was just dug out of some unlucky person's storage bag, still carrying a bloody smell. The cultivation world is just like this. The sect talks about rules, the market talks about price, the wild mountains and ridges talk about whether your life is hard or not. And Lu Huaizhen was at this time, having chiseled out a small cave dwelling near Qingmong Mountain. He didn't live in the sect. The excuse sounded very nice. Afraid of affecting senior sister's cultivation, afraid of others gossiping, afraid of relying on the sect, not conducive to the tempering of the Tao heart. In reality, he just didn't like to put all his secrets under other people's eyelids. Even if Yun Qingli trusted him very much, he wouldn't trust Yun Qingli completely. In the cave dwelling, Lu Huaizhen sat on the cushion, his face a bit irritable. Shouldn't have made a move early. He cursed in a low voice. Who would have thought that fat guy was actually the direct disciple of the Qishao sect master? Doesn't look like it either. Full of fat, full of dirty words, and his eyes were lecherous. Lu Huaizhen originally just wanted to teach the other party a lesson. Later, while fighting, he found that the other party had good things on him, and later, he couldn't hold his hand back. Since he had killed him, he couldn't just not take the storage bag. He took out a crimson token from the storage bag. The token was warm to the touch, and there was a wisp of strange fluctuation inside. Crimson Jade Token. 10 years later, a secret realm will open on the edge of the western wilderness. According to the news he accidentally obtained, the Crimson Jade Token is one of the proofs to enter the secret realm. This thing is too important. Important enough that even knowing there were risks, he didn't regret making a move. Of course, trouble was also truly trouble. The Qishao sect wouldn't let go. In order to protect him, the senior sister even signed a two-sect death match. Originally things had all been pressed onto that old thing Gu Changjin. Who knew that old thing would suddenly have a convulsion? Not only didn't go to die obediently, but almost killed the entire Gu family on the spot. Thinking of this, Lu Huaizhen's brows furrowed even tighter. He always felt something was wrong. The development of things was increasingly slipping out of his control. Lu Huaizhen put away the Crimson Jade Token, and subconsciously touched his chest. Under his lapel, hung a small, unremarkable pot. The pot was only thumb-sized, gray and dusty, looking like some rough pottery thing in the hands of a mortal. But Lu Huaizhen knew, this thing was his real foundation, as long as he put spiritual stones into the pot. After a period of time, the spiritual stones would turn into a kind of cyan spiritual liquid. This spiritual liquid poured on spiritual herbs, could ripen medicinal herbs. The lower the age, the faster it ripens. The higher the age, the more spiritual stones it consumes. He didn't use it much, not because he didn't want to, but because it was too expensive. Plus, he was a pseudo-spiritual root. Even with Yun Qingli's care, resources were limited. Rather than dumping all the spiritual stones into ripening herbs, it was better to keep them for his own cultivation. But the value of this small pot, he knew in his heart, if he could really get high-level spiritual herbs in the future, and cooperate with enough spiritual stones, that was when he would truly take off. Lu Huaizhen stuffed the small pot back into his lapel. His mood settled a bit. He didn't come from a poor background. To be precise, he had good luck since he was a child. Born in a small marquee mansion under the rule of the Xianyang sect. Born with jade in his mouth. Detected to have spiritual roots in his childhood. But his mother's family had old ties with Yun Qingli's faction. He was brought into the Xianyang sect when he was not old, and met Yun Qingli, who was not yet the sect leader at that time. Calling Qingli's sister one mouthful at a time. Calling obediently. Smiling sweetly. Yun Qingli was indeed easy to fool, as long as he pretended to be pure, sensible, occasionally revealing a bit of having suffered grievances but not saying it. The other party would take the initiative to stand up for him. Of course, Lu Huaizhen knew his limits. Yun Qingli can be used, but she cannot be really fooled as a fool. So these years, he had been maintaining himself in a state of being innocent but hardworking, kind but principled. The effect was good, at least this time killing the Qishao sect direct disciple. Yun Qingli's first reaction was also to trust him. That was enough. Lu Huaizhen looked at the sky, suddenly remembering something, stood up and straightened his robes, almost forgot. Tonight, he still has an appointment with an old friend. That person had a 300-year-old condensation dew grass in his hand. If he could win it, and cooperate with the small pot spiritual liquid, maybe he could ripen it to 500 years. At that time, whether it's alchemy or exchanging for resources, it would be very worth it. Lu Huaizhen walked out of the cave dwelling, raised his hand to activate the flying sword. The sword light lifted his body, and flew towards the depths of Qingmong Mountain. The night was very quiet. Occasional low roars of demon beasts came from the mountain forest. Lu Huaizhen flew for a short distance, suddenly feeling tight in his heart. Wrong. Too quiet. He stopped violently in midair, the flying sword under his feet trembling lightly, the mountain wind blowing around, tree shadows swaying, looking like nothing, but Lu Huaizhen's back was already covered in cold sweat. Someone, definitely someone. He immediately cupped his hands, his voice respectful yet with a bit of panic. I don't know which senior is here. Junior Lu Huaizhen is a disciple of the Xianyang sect. My teacher's senior sister is Yun Qingli, currently holding the helm of the Xianyang sect, and has a sister-brother relationship with the junior. If the junior has any offense, please point it out. Senior, do not play such jokes with the junior. He said it very fast, not fast, afraid there would be no chance to speak. First report the sect, then report Yun Qingli. Finally put himself in a low posture. Normally speaking, as long as it's not a mortal enemy, the other party would somewhat have scruples about the Xianyang sect. The mountain forest was silent, but Lu Huaizhen's forehead had more cold sweat. He scanned with his divine sense, but found nothing. This was the most terrible thing. Invisible, not found, not even knowing where the other party was. The next moment, an old voice came from all directions. Junior, your matter has been exposed. Lu Huaizhen's heart jumped fiercely. What does senior mean? That voice carried a cold sneer. Killing my Qishao sect master's direct disciple, snatching my crimson jade token, and you still ask me what I mean? Lu Huaizhen's pupils shrank. Qishao sect. The other party was actually someone from the Qishao sect. How is it possible? No, how could people from the Qishao sect know he was here? Before he could speak, a spark of fire suddenly lit up in the mountain forest. 1 point, 2 points, 10 points, 100 points, densely packed sparks, like fireflies of red flying all over the sky, emerging from all directions, but in every spark, hit a wisp of sword intent that was sharp to the extreme. Lu Huaizhen's face changed completely. Sword intent. Nascent soul sword cultivator. Something big has happened. He almost didn't hesitate, turned around and wanted to escape, but the firelight in the sky had already fallen. The old voice sounded for the last time. Wait for death. Boom. The sky full of fiery sword light, slammed heavily towards Lu Huaizhen. The moment the sky full of fiery sword light fell, Lu Huaizhen didn't even have time to scream. It wasn't that he didn't want to scream, but that he couldn't. That strike was too fast, and too ruthless. Gu Chongjin didn't test, didn't hold back, and certainly didn't have any idea of hitting a palm first to see the other party's trump card. Joking, someone suspected to be the child of destiny, and giving him a chance to show his trump card. Is there a hole in the brain? This sword, he directly used the full force of a golden core late-stage sword cultivator, even forcibly driving the sword intent, damaging a bit of the lifespan he had just replenished. The result was also very simple. This sword was almost already equivalent to a strike of a nascent soul sword cultivator. The firelight pressed down. The mountain forest was silent. Lu Huaizhen's protective spiritual light just lit up. up. The next moment it was torn to pieces. Several talismans on his body exploded simultaneously. A jade pendant flew out, a small shield rose, and a wisp of faint cyan light, like wanting to move his body to a distant place. But useless. All useless. The fiery sword light was like a calamity fire descending from the sky, swallowing everything. Lu Huaizhen's body stiffened in midair. In his eyes still remained terror, mazed, incredulity. Then his whole person turned directly into flying ash, not even leaving blood behind. Gu Chongjin hid in the dark, quietly waiting for a few breaths. No reversal, no residual soul fleeing, no grandpa jumping out to roar, "Who is your excellency?" Even less some kind of substitute puppet. Reincarnation mark. Destiny protection. The mountain forest only left a piece of scorched black. Gu Chongjin then walked out from the night. He looked at the position where Lu Huaizhen dissipated. Brows lifted slightly. It seems I thought too much. What child of destiny cannot be easily killed? What must cut luck first? What big villain cannot kill the protagonist? Those are all talking about world rules. In the face of absolute strength. Lu Huaizhen, a foundation establishment mid-stage. Even with something, how can he jump? A nascent soul-level sword slashed down. Life is gone. What's there to talk about the future? Besides, no matter how awesome you are, can you be more awesome than this patriarch's Dao fruit? Gu Chongjin laughed in a low voice, walking in front of that scorched black land. Lu Huaizhen's storage bag was gone, flying sword gone, clothes on his body, talismans, magic tools, basically all blasted to pieces. This is very normal. Gu Chongjin didn't even think about leaving a complete corpse just now, even less about protecting the spoils. But on the ground, there were still two things that were not broken. One was the crimson token, crimson jade token. The other was a gray and dusty small pot. The small pot was only thumb-sized, falling in the scorched black mud, surprisingly without even a half crack. Gu Chongjin's eyes lit up. Good stuff. What can remain under my sword? How can it be ordinary stuff? He didn't even think about it. Raised his hand to roll. The crimson jade token and the small pot both fell into his palm. Crimson jade token warmed to the touch. The secret realm fluctuation inside was still there. The small pot had no movement. Gray and dusty, looking like some small thing for holding inferior wine at a mortal tea stand. But the more it was like this, the more Gu Chongjin felt it was interesting. Treasures conceal themselves. I understand. It's all this routine. After putting away the two things, Gu Chongjin didn't leave immediately. He first turned around in place, confirming there was no residual soul or lingering thoughts of Lu Huaizhen. Only then nodded in satisfaction. Then, he raised his hand and slashed again. Boom. The scorched ground was blasted open again. Fiery sword energy exploded all around, leaving extremely obvious burn marks. Gu Chongjin thought about it, and added two more swords. Boom, boom. The mountain forest shook. The ground was blasted into several deep pits. After doing these, he deliberately urged the Jinyang sword classic, leaving the aura of a fire-attributed sword cultivator nearby. The Qishao sect is also known for fire-attributed cultivation methods. Of course, looking closely it certainly isn't exactly the same, but it doesn't matter. Who would look closely? Lu Huaizhen killed the Qishao sect master's direct disciple, stole the crimson jade token. Now he died here, and the scene is full of fire-attributed sword energy. How reasonable. Too reasonable. Gu Chongjin even intimately left a few wisps of violent sword intent nearby, not for people to see clearly, but to make those who come to see not dare to look too clearly. Insufficient strength. Hard looking at sword intent will only hurt eyes and spirit. At that time, they will naturally imagine the Qishao sect secretly sent strong people to intercept and kill Lu Huaizhen. Furious to revenge. Everything makes sense. Gu Chongjin looked at his own layout. The more he looked, the more satisfied he was. Not bad. Looks quite like it. He rolled his sleeves. His whole person silently disappeared into the night. When he returned to the Spirit Path Peak cave dwelling, the sect was still quiet. Nobody knew. He had just gone out and slaughtered a guy suspected to be the child of destiny. The secret room's stone door closed. The array lit up in layers. Gu Chongjin sat on the cushion. Only then did he take out tonight's spoils. Crimson jade token on the left, small pot on the right. He first picked up the crimson jade token. This thing had some impressions in the original body's memories. In this western wilderness, every few hundred years, there will be some ancient ruins appearing. The most famous among them is the Qiyuan secret realm that is about to open in 10 years. It is rumored that the Qiyuan secret realm was once a piece of the cave heaven remnant of a deity transformation great cultivator. Inside there are ancient pills, spiritual herbs, magic treasures, and traces of inheritance left by the deity transformation great cultivator. Of course, the danger is also great. Golden core cultivators go in, might not even be able to come out alive. But in this cultivation thing, where is there no adventure? Crimson jade token is one of the proofs to enter the Qiyuan secret realm. The whole western wilderness does not have many pieces. No wonder Lu Huaizhen killed people to seize the token. Changed to Gu Chongjin, he also felt hot-eyed when seeing such things. Qiyuan secret realm. 10 years later, Gu Chongjin put away the crimson jade token. This is not urgent. 10 years sounds long, but for him now, it is completely worth waiting for. After all, lifespan just increased by 300 years. Before it was a 3-month countdown. Now it's starting from 300 years. The mentality is different. Subsequently, he focused his gaze on the small pot. Gu Chongjin stared at it for a a long time. No, you really are a pot. He had just guessed it casually. Small green bottle, small blue pot, small black jar, thought of everything. But the result was a real small pot fell off Lu Huaizhen. This was very subtle. Gu Chongjin picked up the small pot, looking at it over and over. The pot mouth was very small. Inside it was pitch black. No artifact spirit response. No celestial music in the ears. Also no ancient existence using a hoarse voice to call him later Comer. Gu Chongjin frowned. Won't it be Aladdin's magic lamp? He tried to inject spiritual energy into it. The small pot didn't react. Tried to drop blood. The small pot sucked the blood, but still didn't react. Tried to probe with divine sense. The divine sense was like entering a piece of empty gray mist space. Could touch nothing. Gu Chongjin wasn't anxious either. Treasures. Having a bit of temper is normal. He took out another low-grade spiritual stone, and threw it into the pot mouth casually. Obviously the pot mouth was extremely small, but the moment the spiritual stone fell down, it was like being swallowed by some space. The small pot vibrated slightly. A moment later, at the bottom of the pot appeared a drop of cyan liquid. Gu Chongjin's eyes lit up. There's a way. He took out an ordinary spiritual herb, and poured that drop of cyan liquid on it. The spiritual herb trembled lightly. The leaves actually unfolded at a speed visible to the naked eye. The age increased. Not much, but it indeed increased. Gu Chongjin tried a few more times. Low-grade spiritual stone, middle-grade spiritual stone, high-grade spiritual stone. The higher the grade of the spiritual stone, the more cyan liquid it produces, the stronger the ripening effect. And this cyan liquid can not only ripen spiritual herbs, but also improve part of the herbal spirituality. Gu Chongjin finally figured it out. This small pot is a treasure for ripening spiritual liquid using spiritual stones. Good stuff. Really good stuff. Falling into the hands of a foundation establishment cultivator like Lu Huaizhen, it really couldn't play much of a role. Poor. No way. A spiritual stone has to be split into flour. Ripening some low-grade medicinal herbs is fine. Really want to ripen high-grade medicinal herbs. It could squeeze him dry. But falling into Gu Chongjin's hands, it was different. He is a golden core elder. Just knocked a sum from the sect, and plundered the Gu family vault. Resources on hand cannot be said to be endless, but at least he is rich in the short term. Gu Chongjin didn't hesitate. Directly fished out hundreds of top-grade spiritual stones from his storage ring, one by one crystal clear. Spiritual energy thick enough to almost turn into mist. Eat. He poured them casually. Hundreds of top-grade spiritual stones fell into the small pot. That small pot was thumb-sized, but like a bottomless pit, swallowing all the spiritual stones. The pot body glowed slightly. Soon, inside, half a small pot of cyan spiritual liquid accumulated. Gu Chongjin looked in a very good mood. Then, he took out a box-bottom spiritual medicine from the depth of his storage ring. 30,000-year purple vein dragon blood ginseng. This was obtained by the original body in a ruin years ago. Could not bear to use. Always kept until now. Originally prepared for hanging life before hitting the nascent soul. Now, well, try the pot first. Gu Chongjin put the purple vein dragon blood ginseng in front of him. Carefully poured down a wisp of cyan liquid. The spiritual liquid fell. The patterns on the purple vein dragon blood ginseng lit up immediately. A rich and almost viscous herbal essence. Diffused in the secret room. 31,000 years. 35,000 years. 40,000 years. The more Gu Chongjin watched, the brighter his eyes became. Simply continued to pour. Waiting until more than half of the half-small pot of spiritual liquid was poured away. This purple vein dragon blood ginseng was actually forcibly ripened to 50,000 years. 50,000 year spiritual medicine. What is this concept? Deity transformation. Old monsters would feel heart moved. Gu Chongjin picked up the dragon blood ginseng, silent for a while, then opened his mouth and bit one. Sweet, and quite crispy. The next moment, huge medicinal power exploded in his body. Gu Chongjin operated the cultivation method. The golden core vibrated slightly. The cultivation that had just broken through to golden core late stage, actually moved forward again by a trace. Although only a trace, but he is a golden core late stage. Gu Chongjin looked down at the small pot in his hand, the smile becoming thicker and thicker. Good treasure. Lu Huaizhen. Ah, Lu Huaizhen. You holding this thing to ripen some broken medicinal herbs. Truly a waste of heavenly treasures. This thing in others' hands, is a farming treasure. In Gu Chongjin's hands, it is smashing money to become strong. Spiritual stones turn to spiritual liquid. Spiritual liquid ripens spiritual medicine. Spiritual medicine replenishes cultivation. The path is suddenly cleared. Gu Chongjin solemnly put away the small pot. Subsequently, he looked outside the secret room again. Next, should go to the sect treasure vault. The 3 treasures that Yun Qingli promised him, he hasn't taken yet. Not taking them would be a waste. And tomorrow, is the day of the death match. When tomorrow arrives, if they discover that Lu Huaizhen is dead, Gu Chongjin's mouth corners tilted up slightly. That would be interesting. When the sect war begins, this elder will absolutely not fight for the sect for nothing. Of course, if they add more money, this patriarch isn't incapable of being loyal to the sect. Gu Changjin said and did it. A place like the sect's treasure vault, naturally cannot be delayed. If things are left there, they belong to the sect. Only when they are in my own hands, are they truly my own. Especially since Yun Qingli has already opened her mouth, allowing him to take 3 items at will. Not taking advantage of this bargain, would be letting myself down. Before the night had completely faded, a flash of sword light appeared on Spirit Path Peak, and Gu Changjin's figure had already disappeared from the cave dwelling. Behind the Xianyang sect, there is a spiritual peak shrouded in mist and clouds all year round. Looking from afar, the peak does not look high, and even appears somewhat ordinary. But the closer one gets, the more one can feel that something is wrong. The mountain is before your eyes, and yet it seems as if it is not. Mist and clouds wrap around the mountain body layer by layer, with array patterns faintly flowing within. If ordinary disciples were to stray in, I'm afraid they would walk until they died, and only be able to circle the periphery. Gu Changjin stopped in midair, looking at this spiritual peak. His eyes shifted slightly. The sect treasure vault can also be called the treasure storing peak. On the surface, it is a mountain. In reality, the entire mountain belly has been opened into a half-cave heaven. Inside, it forms its own space. Spiritual stones, pills, magic tools, cultivation methods, array discs, talismans, and inheritance artifacts left by predecessors of past generations. Most are stored here. If this place were to be robbed, the Xianyang sect wouldn't just be destroyed on the spot. At the very least, half its life would have to be cut off. In the original body's memories, the Xianyang sect was very glorious back then. Although now it can only be counted as a top-tier sect in the western wilderness, it was indeed wealthy in the past. Being able to open a half-cave heaven shows that this sect has produced at least a deity transformation cultivator. Gu Changjin had a plan in mind. The Xianyang sect is not as simple as it looks on the surface. If he really wants to make a move in the future, he must first weigh how many old monsters are buried beneath. His gaze swept towards another mountain peak not far away. That side is excessively quiet. The entire peak is like a sleeping giant beast. Yun Qingli's master, the nascent soul supreme elder of the Xianyang sect who shakes the western wilderness, is in seclusion there. It is said that this person hasn't shown his face for nearly 200 years. It's not that there are no other nascent soul cultivators in the sect, but when outsiders mention the Xianyang sect's nascent soul, their first reaction is still this person. This shows that the old thing was very capable of fighting back in the day. Gu Changjin narrowed his eyes. Still have to be stable. Golden Core late stage is very strong. Golden Core late stage sword cultivator with sword intent is even stronger, but not entering nascent soul ultimately still lacks a breath of strength, especially since the cultivation world is not the wuxia world. The 100-year-old sword god could kill the rivers and lakes into silence with one sword, but not here. If a nascent soul old monster really jumps out, he also has to consider how to run. Must expand the soul as soon as possible, and take in another me. Otherwise, he always feels insecure. Gu Changjin thought in his heart. His figure landed in front of the treasure storing peak. As soon as he approached, a pair of eyes opened deep in the clouds and mist. Gu Changjin. The voice was aged, but not weak. The clouds parted. An old man in gray robes sat at the end of the stone steps, holding a black cane in his hand. This person's name is Han He, the guardian elder of the treasure storing peak. Golden Core late stage peak. Only one step away from nascent soul. Of course, this step has been missing for many years. Before the original body had formed the core, Han He was already at the Golden Core late stage. Now the original body is almost at the end of its lifespan, and this old thing is still at the Golden Core late stage. It looks like his lifespan is also not left with much. The two didn't have a deep friendship, but having been in the sect for many years together, they at least count as familiar faces. Han He looked at Gu Changjin. A trace of complexity flashed in his eyes. The sect leader has already issued the order. You may enter the treasure vault to take 3 items. Gu Changjin nodded. Sorry to trouble Elder Han. Han He didn't say much, just stood up, and led Gu Changjin towards the mountain belly. The moment they entered the array gate, the heaven and earth suddenly changed. Outside, it was a spiritual peak with clouds and mist. Inside, it was a massive stone hall. The stone hall was 100 feet high, with jade platforms suspended in all directions. On the jade platforms, there were prohibitions, and inside the prohibitions were various treasures. There were ancient swords suspended in the air, pill bottles sealed with wax, jade slips floating and sinking, and some broken objects whose use could not be discerned, sealed separately in black stone boxes. Gu Changjin scanned them, and made a tisk sound in his heart. Many good things. The foundation of the Xianyang sect is indeed much stronger than the Gu family. Han He walked beside him, his voice deep. You may choose slowly, but you can only take 3 items. Gu Changjin smiled. I know. Han He looked at him. Actually, he felt some sympathy for Gu Changjin in his heart. After a lifetime of cultivation, the most feared thing is to have no support in old age. But what's even more feared is that having support is no better than having no support. About that Gu family matter, he naturally had heard. His own clansmen knelt outside the cave, begging the patriarch to go to his death. This kind of thing, just thinking about it makes one's heart turn cold. He even felt a bit of fortune in his heart. He had no family in this life, no disciples, with nothing to hang on to except the sect, although lonely and cold, but at least he wouldn't be roasted on the fire by so-called blood ties and family affection. But this bit of sympathy soon turned into heartache, because Gu Chongjin's goal was too clear. He didn't choose slowly at all. After coming in, he went straight to the first layer of prohibitions deep in the stone hall. He's brows jumped. You want to take this item? On the jade platform sat a small glazed cup. Inside the small cup, there was half a cup of silver liquid. The liquid didn't move, yet it was as if countless tiny starlights were cracking and gathering within it. Gu Chongjin's eyes didn't move away. Star marrow for soul splitting. This is one of the rare soul treasures in the Xianyang sect's vault. After taking it, it can expand the soul foundation, and even have a chance to let the soul undergo a transformation. Of course, the process is very painful, and there are risks. Normal golden core cultivators use it, mostly to increase a few points of certainty before hitting nascent soul. But for Gu Chongjin, this item came just at the right time. What he lacks most now is the soul's carrying capacity. The fusion of 3 lifetimes of memories has already reached the limit. If he wants to take in the second me, the soul must first be expanded. Star marrow for soul splitting just happens to be able to supplement this link. He couldn't help but say, although this item is good, but your lifespan is running out, and your soul is decaying. Taking it rashly, the backlash will not be small. Gu Chongjin sighed. Since I am going to die anyway, if I don't try, how would I know? He was silent. These words were not wrong. For someone about to die, gambling on it is normal. He raised his hand to undo the prohibition. Gu Chongjin rolled his sleeve, and directly collected the star marrow for soul splitting, the first item. Then, he walked forward again. He had been calm originally, but after seeing where Gu Chongjin stopped, his expression finally couldn't be held back. Gu Chongjin, you even want this thing? On the jade platform in front of Gu Chongjin, hung a sword embryo the size of a palm. The sword embryo was entirely deep blue, with starlight flowing on its surface, as if a small piece of the night sky was sealed inside. Star sword embryo, a relic left behind by a nascent soul sword cultivator supreme elder of the Xianyang sect after he sat down. It is said that this object was refined by that supreme elder from a meteorite outside the heavens back then, originally intending to cast it into his natal spirit sword. Unfortunately, before it could be cast, the person died first. This thing had been in the treasure vault for many years. It's not that no one coveted it, but they couldn't afford to use it. If you want to refine it into a sword, at the very least, you need nascent soul level firepower and divine sense. Golden core cultivators take it, and have no way to refine it at all. But unable to refine, doesn't mean it's not precious. Even nascent soul sword cultivators would feel hot-eyed seeing it. He's heart ached so much that the corners of his eyes twitched. But Gu Chongjin was justified. I am a sword cultivator. Taking a sword embryo is very reasonable, right? Reasonable. Too reasonable. So reasonable that he wanted to curse. Someone who is going to a death match tomorrow. What is he taking the star sword embryo for? Dreaming of refining it into a sword tonight? Dreaming. But the sect leader had an order. Take 3 items at will. He could only suppress his heartache, and open the prohibition. When Gu Chongjin collected the star sword embryo, he was in a very good mood. Just because he can't refine it now, doesn't mean he won't be able to in the future. With the Dao fruit, with the small pot, with the sword intent, nascent soul is just a matter of time. This sword embryo falling into his hands, finally has a future. The second item. Gu Chongjin continued to walk. This time, he had already started to guard against him. He discovered that Gu Chongjin was not choosing randomly. This old thing has very poisonous eyes, exclusively picking the things in the vault that are truly at the bottom of the box. Sure enough, a moment later, Gu Chongjin stopped in front of a row of pill bottles. He's heart skipped a beat. Even this bottle, on the jade platform, placed a blue-gold pill bottle, with a spirit-sealing talisman attached to the bottle body. On it were written 3 characters. Xuanji pill. A high-grade pill for golden core cultivators to increase cultivation. Not the kind of fierce medicine that erupts immediately after eating, but one that can slowly refine the golden core, promoting steady growth in cultivation. Especially beneficial for cultivators below the golden core late stage. A bottle of Xuanji pill, if given to a golden core mid-stage cultivator to take, after a few years of seclusion, there is even a chance to push to golden core late stage. Of course, it takes time to digest. Gu Chongjin is still a golden core mid-stage externally, and has a death match tomorrow. He looked at him, feeling very uncomfortable in his heart. If this thing were given to other golden core elders in the sect, maybe it would mean a golden core late-stage cultivator. But given to Gu Chongjin, forget it. A person who is about to die. So what if he takes it? Once he loses the death match, the things will naturally be collected back. Even if he ate a few, there would still be leftovers. Thinking of this, he felt a little more comfortable. He undid the prohibition, and handed the Xuanji pill to Gu Chongjin. 3 items are complete. Gu Chongjin took the pill bottle, and nodded with a smile. Thank you, Elder Han. He looked at him, and suddenly sighed. Gu Chongjin, going to this death match. If it cannot be done, then preserve yourself. Gu Chongjin looked at him. This old thing actually said something human for once. It's just a pity. These words are no longer applicable now. Gu Changjin showed a bitter smile on his face, acting very naturally. Since the death match contract is signed, how can there be a way to preserve myself? I will just do my best. Han he was silent for a while. The sect will remember you. Gu Changjin almost laughed out loud. Remember? It's best not to just remember. It's best to give more. He collected the 3 treasures, and turned to walk outside. His back was still aged, and his aura was still suppressed by him to the golden core mid-stage. Han he looked at his back. Though his heart ached, he didn't say anything more. Since the person is going to die, taking some things, just consider it as funeral items. But he didn't know. After Gu Changjin walked out of the treasure storing peak, the corners of his mouth could no longer be suppressed. Star marrow for soul splitting, star sword embryo, Xuanji pill. These 3 items have reached his hands. Wanting to collect them back, wait for the next life. When Gu Changjin returned to the Spirit Path Peak secret room, outside the moon was bright and the stars were sparse, and the night was very deep. But the night of the cultivation world is different from the previous life. Above the sky, the stars were shining scarily one by one, like spiritual stones nailed to the firmament. Not that kind of distant and indifferent light, but carrying a certain indescribable pressure, as if when you looked up at them, they were also looking at you. Gu Changjin stood outside the secret room, looked up for a glance. The starlight fell on his aged face, very cold, and also very bright. He suddenly remembered some fragmentary rumors in the original body's memories. It is said that beyond the western wilderness, there is the central region. In the central region, sects are numerous. Holy lands occupy territory. Even nascent soul cultivators wouldn't dare to say they can walk sideways. There are even people who say, deep in the ancient immortal dynasties of the central region, there are immortal relics. In even more exaggerated rumors, it is said, there are truly living immortals in this world. Gu Changjin would have mostly treated this as a story when hearing such things before, but it is different now. He has the Tao fruit in his sea of consciousness. Deep in the Tao fruit, among those blurred figures, some things cannot be looked at closely at all. Like humans, yet not like humans. Like gods and demons, yet deeper than gods and demons. More dark, more indescribable. If there are no immortals in there, Gu Changjin wouldn't believe it. There are even some Mies that might even chew immortals as snacks. Once thinking of this, Gu Changjin felt an indescribable excitement in his heart. These are all his. No, to be precise, these were originally him. It's just that the current him is still too weak. Weak to the point that he can only take in the Tao traces of a 100-year-old sword god from a wuxia world. But sooner or later, the Tao traces will return to one. All Mies will merge into one. He will truly control this Tao fruit. By then, what sect, what family, what nascent soul supreme elder, all will be jokes. Gu Changjin withdrew his gaze, turned and entered the secret room. The stone door closed. The array lit up. The starlight outside was mostly blocked out, yet there were still tiny fragments of light spilling in through the gaps in the array patterns, glimmering slightly on the stone wall. He didn't waste time, first taking out the star marrow for soul splitting. The small glazed cup floated in his palm. Inside, half a cup of silver liquid flowed quietly, looking very beautiful, like a small piece of crushed galaxy. But Gu Changjin knew very well, this thing is not gentle. Star marrow for soul splitting. The 2 words, soul splitting, indicate its effect. It doesn't simply nourish the soul, but first tears it apart, then repairs it. Tear it apart time after time, repair it time after time. If you hold on, the soul foundation skyrockets. If you can't hold on, even if the person doesn't die, they will become a madman. Gu Changjin stared at it for a while, and suddenly laughed. Mad? He isn't exactly a normal person now anyway. Died once, changed into a body that was about to die, and received the memories of a 100-year-old sword god for a lifetime. 3 lifetimes of memories piled up in his brain, none of which were easy to handle. Being a bit madder. So what? Gu Changjin tilted his head, and swallowed the star marrow for soul splitting in one gulp. The next moment, pain, excruciating pain, as if someone had torn his soul apart from the middle, then took a red-hot thin needle, and stitched it inch by inch. Gu Changjin's forehead veins bulged, his fingers instantly digging into the cushion, his teeth biting until they rattled. The array in the secret room lit up layer by layer, sealing his aura tightly. Cannot leak out, not even a bit. At such a time, if anyone perceived an abnormality, that would be asking for trouble for himself. Silver starlight exploded in his sea of consciousness. The soul was torn apart, and then forcibly pushed open by the star marrow. That kind of pain was no longer comparable to the physical body. Gu Changjin had been tormented by illness in his previous life, and this body had also endured the exhaustion of lifespan, golden core fragmentation, but none were as bad as this. The pain of the soul is truly enough to make one want to smash their head and die. But Gu Changjin didn't scream, not even once. He just endured it fixedly, because no matter how ruthless the pain was, it couldn't suppress the craving in his heart. Longevity, becoming stronger, dominating his own life, no longer being deceived by his wife, no longer being betrayed by his son, no longer being forced by his family to go to his death, no longer being used by the sect as a dispensable stepping stone. him. This bit of thought was more useful than any elixir. Gu Changjin endured it hard. Don't know how much time passed. The tearing feeling in the sea of consciousness finally receded slowly. Replacing it was a kind of unprecedented clarity. His soul was more than twice as large as before. The divine sense moved slightly, and it could cover the entire spirit path peak. And even as long as he was willing, he could continue to expand outward. Gu Changjin didn't do that. He was very clear-headed. Now his soul strength had faintly touched the nascent soul level, but he himself was not yet nascent soul. If he relied on his powerful divine sense to scan the entire sect, that wouldn't be showing off. That would be looking for death. There are nascent soul cultivators in the Xianyang sect. Other nascent soul old monsters might not be able to perceive fine details, but Yun Qingli's master was in seclusion on the back mountain. Who knows if that old thing is dead or not? In case he isn't dead, and he scans over with his divine sense, the other party counter-scans back. That would not be fun. Before achieving success, hiding one's true ability is the way to survive. Of course, one cannot hide forever. If one hides for too long, others will really treat you as a soft persimmon, and everyone will want to pinch you. The sense of proportion in this is very important. Gu Changjin slowly spat out a breath of air. This soul hurdle is considered past. Next is the star sword embryo. He waved his sleeve, and that deep blue sword embryo hung in front of him. The sword embryo was only palm-sized, starlight flowing within, as if sealing a piece of night sky. Gu Changjin looked at it. The more he watched, the more satisfied he was. Good stuff. Truly good stuff. It's just a pity the normal process is too slow. According to reason, after getting such a sword embryo, it needs to be nourished by pill fire, tempered by divine sense, and then merged bit by bit with the natal spirit sword, taking at least a few decades, at most 100 years. Only then can it finally become a true natal spirit sword suitable for oneself. Gu Changjin can't wait, and he doesn't want to wait. Fuse it first and then talk. He raised his hand and summoned. The crimson Jinyang sword flew out from his dantian, and hung in front of him. This sword had followed the original body for many years. The killing power is okay, but the material is average. In the hands of an ordinary golden core sword cultivator, it counts as a good sword, but in the eyes of the current Gu Changjin, it's a bit lacking, especially the path he will take in the future. Cannot stop at the golden core. If the Jinyang sword is not upgraded, it will sooner or later hold him back. Gu Changjin aligned his fingers and pointed. Sword intent pressed down. The star sword embryo and the Jinyang sword vibrated simultaneously. The next moment, the two crashed heavily together. Boom! Inside the secret room, starlight and crimson flames exploded simultaneously. The array flashed violently. Gu Changjin's face went slightly pale, but he didn't stop. He forcibly suppressed the conflict between the two sword tools with his nascent soul-level divine sense, and dripped his natal essence blood into them. The crimson sword light was swallowed bit by the deep blue starlight. A moment later, the appearance of the Jinyang sword completely changed. The originally sharp and slender crimson spirit sword disappeared. Replacing it was a pitch-black long strip of object, like a sword, yet not like a sword. Gray and dusty, ugly and stable. It's even a bit of a grievance to the word sword to call it a sword. Gu Changjin stared at it for a long time, his mouth corners twitching. What is this thing? He knew this was a normal phenomenon. Forced fusion, and the refining isn't completely finished yet. Naturally, it won't look good anywhere. Afterward, as long as one carefully nourishes it with their spirit, and completely kneads the star sword embryo and the Jinyang sword together, it will naturally grow back into a sword shape. By then, not only will the Jinyang sword grade soar, but it can also absorb the power of the stars. Both its killing power and growth potential will be far superior to before. But this current appearance is indeed a bit shameful for a sword cultivator. Gu Changjin thought about it, and simply put it into his dantian. Out of sight, out of mind. Anyway, it's a death match tomorrow. It's not necessary to use a complete sword shape. The more miserable the fight, the better. This is also why he forcibly fused the sword now, to win the death match, but cannot win too easily. Must be tragic. It's best to let everyone feel that Gu Changjin has exhausted his last bit of lifespan, finished off the Qishao sect golden core, and then should be sitting into death upon his return. This way, the sect will not only be unable to continue forcing him, but also has to give him respect. After all, for a person who is about to die and just made a great contribution, you certainly cannot immediately rush up and ask him when the things in the treasure vault will be returned. That little white lotus Yun Qingli especially cannot do this kind of thing. She wants face, wants sect leader dignity, and even more wants to maintain her own understanding of great justice, decency. Gu Changjin understands this kind of person too well. He has even calculated the aftermath. After the death match ends tomorrow, Lu Huaizhen's death news should mostly spread back to the sect. By then Yun Qingli will inevitably lose her composure. The Qishao sect side will certainly not let it go. A two-sect war is imminent. Everyone's attention will be absorbed by Lu Huaizhen's death and the Qishao sect's revenge, who will still be staring at an old golden core, who is about to sit into death. By the time they finally realize, and put their attention back on him, by then Gu Changjin might have already entered the nascent soul realm with his sword, changing from a sect elder to a sect supreme elder. By then, it will not be others deciding his life, but him turning back to decide others' lives. Gu Changjin laughed in a low voice. This game is very smooth. Of course, the premise is that tomorrow's play must be acted well. Cannot be too fake, also cannot be too real. If it is real to the point of suffering serious injury, then it is a loss. If it is fake to the point of being seen through by others at a glance, that is also troublesome. It is best to be miserable in appearance, but stable as can be internally. Gu Chongjin took out the Xuanji pill, looked at it, and put it back away. He is not in a hurry to take it now. The golden core late stage has just broken through. The foundation needs to be stabilized. With the small pot, with the 50,000-year spiritual medicine, with the Xuanji pill, plus the Tao fruit, nascent soul is no longer an unreachable matter. He closed his eyes, and started to slowly operate. Jinyang Sword Classic. In the Dantian, that pitch-black sword embryo vibrated lightly. In the sea of consciousness, the Tao fruit floated quietly. The residual starlight of the star marrow for soul splitting was still expanding his soul boundaries bit by bit. Outside the secret room, the stars were still bright. Those lights passed through the array, falling on the stone wall, like strips of tiny silver threads. Gu Chongjin was right in this faint light, quietly waiting for dawn. Tomorrow's death match should be very exciting. Today's Xianyang sect is exceptionally lively. As soon as the day broke, spiritual lights broke through the air from outside the mountain gate, some riding swords, some riding boats, some stepping on gourds, sitting on spiritual beasts. Golden core cultivators, rarely seen on weekdays, were gathered together today, landing one after another on the guest reception peak of the Xianyang sect. Almost all the named sects of the western wilderness had sent people. There were also some lone, famous loose cultivator old monsters, who had all arrived. It's not that they are idle, but the death match between the Xianyang sect and the Qishao sect has too much movement. Two sects fighting over a cold marrow vein, each sending a golden core. Life and death are not determined. The winner takes the mine. If this matter only had the two sects themselves witnessing, then after the fight, anything could be said. What if they don't acknowledge the loss? What if they make moves in the dark? What if they break the contract? So they must invite outsiders. With these sect elders and famous loose cultivators present, who dares to break the rules? Who, from then on, should not think about mixing in the western wilderness? On the guest reception peak, a group of Xianyang sect disciples looked at those golden core cultivators from afar, their eyes filled with both awe and excitement. This kind of scene usually cannot be seen. I heard that the one fighting today is Elder Gu. Who else could it be? The death match contract is already signed. Sigh. Elder Gu could also be counted as a person of the hour in our Xianyang sect back when he was young. So what? No matter how powerful, he is old. I heard his lifespan is almost gone. It's a pity to say it like that. Someone sighed, but someone next to him immediately responded. Pity what? Dying for the sect. Is dying in the right place? The cold marrow vein concerns the century-old foundation of the sect. If I were Elder Gu's age, I would also be willing to contribute my last bit of strength to the sect. This was said powerfully. The surrounding disciples looked at him one after another. That person looked quite righteous on his face, but he quietly added a sentence in his heart. Of course, if it really were to be my turn, that would be forget it. Isn't it good to be alive? On the other side, disciples from small family backgrounds discussed things more realistically. I heard the sect leader promised the Gu family a candidate quota for the foundation establishment pill for 30 years. Is it true? Can it be false? Direct disciple quota, inner sect quota, spiritual fields, spiritual vein side courtyard. I heard they have all been allocated to the Gu family. Hiss. Then didn't the Gu family make a huge profit? More than just a huge profit. Using an old patriarch whose lifespan is running out, to exchange for the Gu family's century-old foundation. If my family had this kind of patriarch. Speaking halfway, he stopped himself. This cannot be said further. A bit immoral, but everyone understands in their hearts. This deal of the Gu family indeed makes a steady profit without loss. What's even more ruthless is, rumors were released outside, saying Elder Gu originally wanted to exchange the resources rewarded by the sect leader for life-extending pills, preparing to gamble one more time before the death match. But the Gu family head brought his clansmen to the door to plead, crying and kneeling, saying the Gu family cannot be without a foundation, saying the younger generation cannot be without a future. Finally, Elder Gu's heart softened, only keeping a small portion of life-prolonging things, and exchanging the rest of the rewards into quotas and resources for the Gu family. After this news came out, the Gu family's reputation became a bit unpleasant. Some people cursed them for filial piety to the point of being strong. Some said they were eating too ugly. Others also felt Gu Chongjin was stupid. Being a golden core cultivator, how could he be handled like this by the family? But these words were said, and soon others shook their heads. Stupid? Who can cultivate to golden core? Is truly stupid? Maybe he just saw through life and death, and wants to leave some things for his blood descendants. Of course, these people didn't know. The news was released by people sent by Gu Chongjin. Did the Gu family get it? Didn't get it. Where are the resources? All in Gu Chongjin's hands. But the reputation was sent out first. When the Gu family discovers later they didn't get their benefits, but carried on their back the infamous reputation first. That expression should be quite interesting. Just when everyone was discussing, a bell sounded outside the mountain gate. Dang! Crimson glow surged from the horizon. The people of the Qishao sect had arrived. The person in the lead wore a crimson magic robe, with cold brows and eyes, temples slightly white. The fire energy on his body pressed the surrounding spiritual clouds to twist twist slightly. Qishao Sect Master, Li Fenchen, Golden Core late stage. Behind him followed several Qishao Sect elders, and a tall middle-aged cultivator. That middle-aged cultivator had a steady face, carrying a red copper long saber on his back. His aura was clearly Golden Core mid-stage. This person's name is Zhou Liang, a very famous genius of this generation of the Qishao Sect. Of course, this genius is not a teenage genius. Among those who cultivate to Golden Core, who is truly young, Zhou Liang is already over 200 years old this year. But among Golden Core cultivators, 200 years old can indeed be counted as middle-aged. Middle-aged pride is also pride. Once Zhou Liang landed, his gaze swept over the Xianyang Sect crowd, with a bit of undisguised battle intent in his eyes. The Qishao Sect disciples all had cold and hard expressions. This time the one who died was the sect leader's direct disciple. They were not here to go through the motions. On the Xianyang Sect side, Yun Qingli also appeared with several elders. She was in white, with a cold expression, standing before the main seat. Her temperament was indeed very stable, but the older generation of elders behind her had faces that didn't look good. Li Fenchen saw Yun Qingli, and sneered. Sect leader Yun has such a great scene, letting an old generation sword cultivator whose lifespan is running out die for your Xianyang Sect, and you can even handle it so lively. Once these words were out, many elders of the Xianyang Sect had their faces sink. This was not just pricking Yun Qingli, but also pricking their Xianyang Sect. Yun Qingli said coldly, Sect leader Li, watch your words. Elder Gu is an elder of my Xianyang Sect. This battle is for the sect, so where does dying for come from? Li Fenchen chuckled, saying it nicely. If it were truly for the sect's mineral vein, I would also respect him 3 points. But you and I both know why this death match started at all. He took a step forward, his voice raised suddenly. If not for your precious junior brother Lu Huaizhen killing my direct disciple, and stealing my crimson jade token, how could things have come to this? Now you are acting all high and mighty, putting the vain dispute on the surface. What? Does sect leader Yun think that the friends of the Western Wilderness are all easy to fool? Once these words were out, the guest reception peak was instantly in an uproar. What? The death match wasn't because of the cold marrow vein? Lu Huaizhen? Isn't that sect leader Yun's junior brother? Crimson jade token? No wonder the Qishao sect bit so hard. The surrounding sect elders who were watching the battle also showed meaningful expressions. They had only heard the two sects fighting over the mine, didn't expect there was such a layer inside. The Qishao sect master clearly deliberately exposed it in public. This time, the Xianyang sect's face could not be held. Yun Qingli's face turned blue and white. She had anger in her heart, and also a moment of panic. But soon, that bit of panic was suppressed. Huaizhen couldn't have done this kind of thing. Even if there is some misunderstanding, it must have been the Qishao sect disciple who forced him first. She looked at Li Fenchen, her voice colder. Sect leader Li, slandering my Xianyang sect disciples without proof. Do you really think my Xianyang sect is without anyone? Li Fenchen's eyes sharpened. Slander? The crimson jade token is in his hands. My direct disciple died in his hands. And you still dare to say slander? Yun Qingli's sleeve robes moved. The atmosphere between the two sects became tense instantly. Just at this moment, a terrifying pressure rose from the back mountain of the Xianyang sect. Boom! The heaven and earth seemed to sink all at once. All the golden core cultivators present felt a sudden tightening in their hearts. Nascent soul pressure. The low-grade disciples on the guest reception peak were even paler. Some were almost unable to stand steady. Li Fenchen's face changed, forcibly swallowing the following words back. Damn it, those supreme elders of the Xianyang sect, are they too indulgent to this Yun Qingli? The juniors quarrel a couple of words, and nascent soul pressure is released. Is there any reason left? But the next moment, behind the Qishao sect team, a crimson aura also rushed into the sky. That aura, like a volcanic eruption, directly pushed the Xianyang sect's nascent soul pressure back. The people in the field then breathed a sigh of relief. Above the clouds, someone chuckled. Fellow Taoist Wen Yu, today is a death match for the juniors. Let us old things not scare people below. Behind the Xianyang sect, that aged voice sounded lightly. Since fellow Taoist Qi Yan has come, why hide? There are also a few fellow Taoists. Come out together. Let us discuss the Tao above the clouds, and leave the scene to the juniors. As the voice fell, above the firmament, the sea of clouds surged, one by one nascent soul auras, emerging one after another. By the time Gu Changjin arrived, it was already lively above the clouds. He didn't enter the scene immediately, but leading a group of Gu family people, stood on a side peak far away. Gu Jingshan followed behind, his face pale, his waist and back bent quite a lot. The other Gu family elders and juniors went without saying, all bowing their heads, not even daring to breathe loudly. A few days ago, they still dared to kneel under the spirit path peak to beg the patriarch to die. Now they don't dare, because they discovered, this patriarch truly can kill people. And when the Spirit Path Peak disciples went to the Gu family to collect resources, they really collected until they were dead. Family vault, secret vault, private stash of several family branches. Everything that was found was moved clean. The Gu family members felt heartache to the point of bleeding, but they dared not resist. Who let the sword still hang above their heads? Gu Chongjin didn't pay attention to them. He narrowed his eyes, looking at the several nascent soul auras flickering above the clouds. Mutters in his heart, Xianyang sect, they have things. That supreme elder who made the move just now was not Yun Qingli's master, but another old supreme elder of the Xianyang sect, named Qin Wenyue. This person, according to the original body's memories, had not shown his face for 500 years. There were even rumors outside, saying he had long sat into death. But today not only did he not die, but he personally came out to support Yun Qingli. This is very interesting. A newly promoted Golden Core sect leader. Why should she be protected so much by these old things? Could it be because her master is Nascent Soul? Incorrect. The face of Nascent Soul is big, but not big to this extent. Gu Chongjin's brain turned, and suddenly a very absurd but reasonable guess emerged. Yun Qingli wouldn't be the daughter of that big boss on the back mountain, right? Or even more absurd, bloodline descendant? Otherwise, these supreme elders are too indulgent to her. Sect is not family. Supreme elder is not a nanny. Old things who can cultivate to nascent soul are all as shrewd as ghosts. How could there be any groundless wiping of a junior's butt? And Qin Wenyue is still alive. Then the nascent souls hidden by the Xianyang sect, I'm afraid, are even more than what the outside world knows. 4, 5, even 6. Gu Chongjin's heart sank slightly. This western wilderness place looks remote, but the water is not shallow. It seems that even if he enters nascent soul, he cannot be too arrogant. Nascent soul just has the qualification to sit at the table and speak, not the qualification to directly flip the table. If he really wants to flip the table, at least he must first figure out how many old dogs are hiding under the table. Soon, the Qi Yen supreme elder from the Qishao sect side also appeared. Besides that, there were several nascent soul old monsters who came to watch the battle, exposing their auras one after another from behind the clouds. Some were sect supreme elders, some were loose cultivator nascent souls. Among them, the auras of 2 loose cultivators were especially strange. One looked like dead wood, one looked like a cold pool, standing above the clouds without speaking, yet no one dared to ignore them. Several nascent souls greeted each other, and then their figures hid into the sea of clouds in the higher places. The so-called discussing the Tao above the clouds. To put it plainly, is you staring at me, I staring at you. Don't intervene in the death match below, and don't let others intervene. After these nascent souls disappeared, the atmosphere on the guest reception peak eased a little. Yun Qingli and Li Fenshen both snorted coldly, returning to their main seats. The disciples of the 2 sects lined up on both sides. The cultivators of various sects watching the battle also looked at the death match stage. It's the turn of the main characters to appear.